Members of the county assemblies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome you to the second day of our 5th Legislative Summit. Karibuni sana na nashukuru kwa sababu mmefanya muda kuwa pamoja nasi. I'm looking around this room and I think I could easily say we are making quorum. Sindio bwana SG? The quorum is good enough. Asante sana. And on behalf of the entire team, the County Assemblies Forum Executive Council, led by Madam Chair Ann Kiusia, together with the entire team, tunasema asante sana kwa kufanya muda kuwa nasi. Also on behalf of the Nairobi City County, led here today by Waheshimiwa Imwatok na pia Mheshimiwa Chege ambao wanawakilisha wodi tofauti hapa Nairobi. Tunawakaribisha Nairobi. Asanteni sana. Toka jana tumekuwa na siku ndefu, leo pia vile vile tumepanga mikakati ya kuwa na siku nyingine ndefu ya kujifunza na kusoma mengi. Let me also make mention that today we have our panelists who are here. I'll be introducing them to you shortly when they come to the stage. But our first topic today, which is the General Session 3, on the second day of the 5th Legislative Summit, the topic is the 4th Generation Revenue Sharing Formula, and the question we ask is it fair share or flawed model? Asante sana kwa ukarimu wa program coordinators, because this topic I know is very dear to all of you. But first and foremost, let me invite the first speaker for the day, Mheshimiwa Fatuma Gedi. She is a commissioner, CBS, at the Commission of Revenue Allocation, to make her first presentation, which I think will make the basis of our discussion later on. Makofi kwake anapokuja jukwani tafadhali. Mheshimiwa Fatuma Gedi, karibu sana. Nafikiri if you can start with your presentation. Asante.
Thank you so much. Honorable members, our distinguished panelists, good morning. I'm pleased to be in front of you today. As you've been told, my name is Fatuma Gedi. I wear 2 hats, one as a commissioner of a CRA, and one as your colleague. I belong to the other side. So with all the noises of yesterday, I feel you, and I'm with you. Mine is just to do a quick presentation on the recommendation of the 4th basis share revenue among the county government on today's 5th Legislative Summit. As you know, CRA, when you hear CRA, it's about resource allocation. That's where you also come in. But my presentation today, I'll outline my presentation into 5 categories. 1, I'll speak about the mandate. 2, the review of the 3rd basis. 3, the proposal from the stakeholders, which you are part of. 4, the framework of the 4th basis, which shortly I'm going to present, and the implementation of the 4th basis. Honorable members, as you know, our mandate, Article 216(1), requires CRA to make recommendations concerning the basis for sharing revenue among national government and county government. CRA, as we speak, we have already submitted the 4th formula to the Senate. Again, Article 217(1) requires the Senate once in 5 years to make resolution determining the basis of allocation to counties. And Article 217(4), again, within 60 days, National Assembly will have the opportunity to consider the Senate resolution for adopting the amendment. The duration of the 4th basis, 2025 to 2026 to all the way to 2030. Again, Article 217(1)(8) provides a review of the basis within 5 years. And that is how the previous commission, if you know, honorable members, they've given the country the 3rd formula. We now, the 3rd commission, we have already submitted the 4th formula, which is with the Senate. Our work is only to recommend. Senate will determine with amendment or without amendment. But again, honorable members, this time what we have done differently is, you remember the noise of the third formula. The country was divided. There was a lot of discrimination in the formula, as people have said. Senate had to have 11 sittings to come up with a formula. And that is now what we're using currently. On the implementation of the third basis, the equitable share among the county government financial year 2020-2021 remained as same as 2029-2020. And equitable share among the county government for financial year 2021-2022 to 2024-2025 was based on the allocation ratio of 50-50. What I mean 50-50, the second parameter, we borrowed 50% from the second parameter and 50% from the, 50% from the third formula. That now gave us the third formula. Of course, there have been many challenges, and one of it was the multiple use of population-based parameters. What do I mean when I say multiple population-based measures? Population index, number one, as you can see in my table, population was given. This is a second revenue sharing, and this is the third basis. So when you look at the parameters that we've used, population is the number of people. Basic equal share, that is the stabilizer, that is equal. Whether your county is small, whether your county is big, whether you have more population, whether your population is small, this basic equal share gives all counties equal amount of money. So this is the equalizer. When we look at the poverty, poverty is the number of poor people, again, it's a population. Land area was in the second formula uncapped at 8. It was not capped. Then there was a physical effort. Although most of the people were saying we must use this parameter to caution counties and to give counties as an incentive those who don't misappropriate public funds, those who use the resources that are given to appropriately. So, but again, there was a lot of feeling that why do we punish people, or why do we punish the poor people, deny them resources based on a performance from a governor? So it's something that you need to take it home. Then there was a development factor at 1%. When you come to the third, health index, there was health index. Again, health was the number of outpatient, inpatient, visiting health center. So again, that is population-driven parameter. Agriculture, well, then there is population again at 18%. Urban services at 5%. Basic share, as I said, it's equal. There was land area capped at 7, but given at the weight of 8%. Road index, again, was the number of people in that area accessing roads, not more than 2. Bringing home is population parameter was duplicated, which is guided by our vision that no Kenyan should be left behind. We wanted to see equity, justice, and we wanted to carry everybody or all Kenyans together. So the proposals of we had stakeholders meetings, and I think this is the first time the CRA has done proper public participation. Last time the commission was accused of not consulting Kenyans, of not consulting members of parliament, senate, governors, and the county assembly members. So what we have done, we came up with a schedule because we understand counties have different needs, counties, the dynamics are different, regions are different. So what we have done, we did caucuses for all the regions. Like the first caucuses that we met was the FCDC region. We met Sereb. Sereb is the Mount Kenya, the central economic bloc. We met Sekeb, that is Machakos, Makueni, and Kitui. We met Lake Basin governors as a region. We met the governors from the Western as a region. We met Rift Valley. We did proper public participation. I remember we also got views from public and Kenyans who had an interest in coming up with the formula. And then as well as members of parliament, we did proper public participation. While we're doing that, we're running away from the blame of the third formula. We just wanted to carry, as I said, everybody together. In the proposal, as we met the stakeholders, there were additional proposals from the stakeholders. Depending on, again, what I said, the needs are different and the dynamics are different. The proposals were blue economy. Those who come from areas of blue economy, they said they want to see blue economy in the formula. Others proposed economic growth. Areas that have no water and sanitation, they said they want to see the formula. The proposal was water and sanitation. Again, I said the fiscal effort. There are people who think that we must reward good governance. So there's again fiscal effort, fiscal prudence. Those are the things that we received, the feedback we received from the stakeholders. On additional parameters that again came was affirmative action to favor small counties. Small counties like Elgeyo Marakwet, Tharaka Nithi, Lamu, small counties like Vihiga have been complaining that the money they get, it's not enough because like the basic share, it is equal allocation to the all counties. So the complaint has been, after they pay salaries, they pay O&M, plus now the operations and all that. The money they're left with for development is very little compared to the other counties. And yet, the number of staff they inherited from the former county council is same. So there have been that challenge. And then being a small county, but you see, they have to give services to the people in terms of even population and all that. So there was that affirmative action, the environmental performance index, counties that have been affected by floods, drought from Northeastern have also mentioned that issue. Security and disease management was also a proposal. Counties that have security issues, the infrastructure needs. Again, there's some people who said ECD, disease prevalence, afforestation, number of farmers, cost of urban services, and among others. So those were now the proposals from the stakeholders. The commission now responds to the proposals by the stakeholders. Number one, the incentive for economic output. And you see, after we get the views from the stakeholders, the commission now sits and analyze one by one the request plus the justification, knowing that some functions are national government functions. Those are the things that we need to consider. So after that, objectively, the commission now came up with a parameter on the incentive gross county product per capita has been incorporated into the recommendation on the fourth basis. So when I come to the fourth basis, you will see how we have accommodated that. The blue economy, there was no data. Specific blue economy activities. I remember we even wrote letter to KNBS, the CEO of KNBS. I personally followed up with that because the people from Nyanza, Western, and the coast, they had a genuine concern on blue economy. And I was really passionate about that so that we don't leave that part of, counties that depend on blue economy. I personally followed up. I remember going to his office, calling the minister in charge of blue economy to please give us the data. Unfortunately, there is no data. So it's a question that I want to throw back to the honorable members here. As a country, big country of Kenya, how is it that we cannot invest in a data and we don't have a data? A country that does not have a data, how do we, again, plan for our resources? Does it mean all these institutions that are planning, resources, that are, sending resources to different ministries or different departments, what we are doing is not accurate, it's not, reliable. So that's your question to the leadership of the CAF. The water and sanitation, again, it was really disheartening that there was no data on water scarcity per county. So what are we saying? How can we, again, as a country, we don't have a data on water scarcity per county? Which data is our governors using to give water to our people? Can we again say the reason why there was a lot of water shortage, there's a lot of water problems in the rural counties is because there's no data? And what are we doing about it? Fiscal prudence, again, the two parameters improving the third basis, the fiscal effort, the two parameters not considered. This is informed by the Senate decision that rejected the two parameters, approving the third basis. Again, the reason I've just mentioned, senators didn't want us to punish people because of poor leadership from the governors. Again, affirmative action. The recommendation on the fourth basis incorporates affirmative action to cushion small counties and also ensure no county will get allocation in subsequent years during the last financial year. The Commission responds to the proposal by the stakeholders. The stakeholders Commission's comment. Environment, again, the parameter is not considered, there's no data. So I don't want to explain, but just know the animal in the house is the data. And that's a question that you need to deliberate on. Environment performance per county, security, again, as I said, we have not considered because national security is a function of the national government. Infrastructural needs, ECD, diseases, urban services, all diseases management. The framework that the Commission have prepared has moved away from sectoral approach due to the data instability. All functions therefore catered for within the overall framework. PFM provides the establishment of emergency funds by county governments. Honorable members, why CRA, as I now come to my the framework for the fourth basis, why we've decided now to move away from sectoral. And when I say sectoral, is the two tables that you saw: health, roads, agriculture, urban, fiscal and prudence, all that. The reason why we decided to move from sectoral parameter is because of data. The data is not accurate. and if the data is not accurate, we do not want to go back to the same problem that the Kenyans have faced. The same problem that gave the Senate to adjourn for 11 sessions to come up with a formula. We just wanted to correct the mess. We just wanted to correct historical injustice. We just wanted to make sure that what we are giving to the country is accurate. And that is the reason why we've moved from sexual. Article 203 criteria is, number one, the need to ensure that county governments are able to perform functions allocated to them. The fiscal capacity efficiency of the county governments, development and other needs of the county. Economic disparities within, among counties, and the need to remedy them. The need of affirmative action is respect of disadvantaged areas and groups. The need for economic optimization of each county to provide incentives to each county to optimize its capacity to raise revenue. The desirability of the stable and predictable allocation of the revenue. The objectives of the fourth revenue sharing basis. Number one, to share revenue equitably to facilitate service delivery. The fourth schedule, Article 187, Article 2031D. The criteria for revenue sharing should provide revenues to ensure that county governments are able to perform functions assigned to them. The question is, are we performing functions assigned to us? Objective number two, to share revenue equitably to address economic disparity and promote development. Article 203 provides for economic optimization, consideration of development and other needs of the counties. That should be the thing that guides us as we come up with the fourth formula. The need to address economic disparity, consideration of affirmative action for disadvantaged areas. That is the Constitution. We do not work in a silo. We have to work within what does the Constitution say. Constitution now addresses all these groups. The choice of now parameters. As I said, the parameters considered for the basic have been selected based on the availability of the data, the credibility and the statistical soundness of the data. So that is what is guiding us. When you now come to the credibility of data, for example, this is RAI. RAI is a Rural Access Index of 2017. And that is 2023. And now this one is 2017 RAI. So that one is a stable data. This one is unstable data. When you just look at it, just look at that, number one, RAI, 362,308. That is 2017. Between 2017 and 2023, the years apart, this is now the data we have, 384,795. This looks reasonable. But when you come here, this is now the data that's unstable. That's RAI 2017, RAI 2023. From 200, 257, you see now the margin is big to 582, 416. Just have a look at it. Go through it, both sides. And what we found out is this data is not accurate. And not only for roads, but even for health. It's the same thing. So we sought questions about it. We wrote to the KMBS. This is now inpatient, occupied bed, inpatient occupied bed, 2019, and this is 2023. The variation, you can see the variation in the data. That's county. We're not putting the name of the counties, but that's county number 1. From 113,772, 2023, coming all the way down to 13,657. Does it even make sense? It doesn't. So CRA, we said we cannot give the country a formula based on a data that is not correct, data that is not, stable. And the Constitution is very clear. We must be guided by data that is stable. The data instability. The Commission notes with concern that the instability in the sectoral data collected by MDS. The Commission also cognizant to the Article 2031 that requires the criteria for revenue sharing remains stable, predictable. So your revenue sharing must remain stable and predictable. For us to get that, we must be guided by a data that is accurate and stable. So if you don't have data that is accurate and stable, so we cannot rely on that, and that is the reason why we've moved away from the sectoral parameters. The Commission has therefore considered the following parameters for the fourth basis. Parameter used in the fourth basis. Now, the current formula we have submitted to the Senate. Parameter population. We've retained population and removed all the sectoral parameters. That population was duplicated in every parameters. So a county proportion of population based on Kenya population housing census 2019. The data that we've used is 2019 census. I know there have been a lot of court cases. I know Garissa, Mandera have gone to court to challenge the 2019. There was a ruling that came out recently, but before the ruling came out, we've already submitted our formula. We understand that even with KNBS census, Kenyans have challenged and Kenyans have got to court challenging the credibility of that data. Equal, again, share and equal allocation to each county finance, common key. As I said again, this is equal to all the counties, regardless of your geographical size, regardless of your population. That money is equal for all the counties. Geographical size of the county, that is now the land area. After doing serious public participation, the county proportion of geographical size capped at 10% based on the data provided with, again, KMPH 2019 by KNBS. I will explain the weights and the parameters, the percentage that we've given to each parameter. There is a parameter called income distance. Income distance, most of the people are asking about income distance. What does it mean? It is not the distance to allocate resources from county A to county B. It is the gap from county A to county B. The gap of other counties, gross county product per capita from the county with the highest GCP per capita based on the data by KNBS for financial year 2020, 2021, 2022. The county with the highest income per capita is assigned the gap of the next highest county. So the gap from Nairobi, which is the highest, for example, to Mandera, which has the lowest GCP per capita is Mandera. So you now, compare or deduct from that. The summary of the fourth basis. Objective, there is the parameters, and there is the assigned weight. What is our objective? Our objective is to share revenue equitably to facilitate service delivery. How do we do that? Our objective number 2 is to share revenues equitably to address economic disparity, promote development. These two has to go together. So you have to use these two to get just formula for all Kenyans. You cannot just say equitable, facilitate service delivery without addressing the economic disparity. So the two has to go together. The population, when you look at the third formula, when I was explaining, all the parameters used in the third and second, population, the parameters were population duplicated. Every parameter, like health is number of people, roads, number of people accessing roads within or more than 2 kilometers. There was again agriculture, that is household. Poverty was population. So this time what we did, we tried to minimize the population and try to balance the entire country. Population we've given at the weight of 42. Because in the previous formula, when you combine the weight for all the population, it was coming around to 79%. So we've given population 42, equal share 22%, geographical size, when I mentioned, I took you through the third formula, you saw geographical size was at 8, capped at 7. You know, again, as I said, we did proper public participation, and those are the concerns that was coming from different parts of the country. If you're not capping population, and you see there is a politics that we need to balance, there are these people from shilingi kwa shilingi na wale wa kilomita. So, you know, being an equity commission, a commission that serves the entire country, we cannot just blindly use one parameter that suits one part of the region at the expense of the entire region. So you have to balance. And you know, land does not move. Population only increases or decreases. So population from the previous formula, and then the land area at 9%, and then poverty at 14%. Then the income distance is what I was explaining at 30%. That total gives us 100%. It gives us 100%. Now the implementation of the fourth basis. A stabilization factor has been inbuilt in the fourth basis to ensure no county gets less than what they were allocated in the financial year 2024-2025. I can say it here in front of you that no county lost. No county lost and no county gets less than what they were allocated in the financial year 2024-2025. The stability in the revenue sharing is important to ensure county programs and projects continue without disruption that may be occasioned by the sudden budget cuts arising from the change of the revenue sharing formula. I know you are familiar with that. The stabilization factor is again computed from the output of the 5 parameters used in the revenue sharing basis. Now if I come to my table to show what counties got in the third basis and what counties are getting in the fourth basis. For example, Baringo County. Baringo County, an index of 1.73, 2024, 2025. They're getting 6,684. Fourth basis, the index is 1.72. So the current allocation, Baringo, in the current, let me just stick to this. The current allocation, Baringo, is getting 7.183. So I don't want to read all the counties. It's just displayed. You can just see that, as I said, no county is losing. In fact, when you look at our formula and you scrutinize the third formula, even within the third formula, after 11 adjournments from the Senate, still some counties were losing. But you see, sometimes you have to buy your peace. They had to move on. But when you look at ours, you compare, scrutinize very well, you will realize that counties are not losing and counties are gaining. But of course, you know, in a public, in a democracy country, some might say, yeah, my county is losing. Why is this county getting more money than this? Why is this county getting? But you see, that's not. The different parameters works for different counties. But the bottom line is my county losing? No, no county is losing. The fourth, do you want to see all the, yeah, you can just display all the counties so that they can see the counties. Honorable members, what we have done differently, we realized the county projection based on what the Minister for Treasury has told us. We recommended 417. So we are asking additional 30 billion to what we currently have. And if you support us, and we've already told Senate to support, because that 30%, 30 billion is just a drop in the ocean for counties. In fact, counties should get more money. The noise that we've been hearing yesterday, I think will not happen, because once the counties get more money, then even in the assembly's ceilings will raise, because the county government will not take all that money. So things have to be balanced between county assemblies and county governments. So again, from CRA and the leadership of CAF, you know we've worked together this journey, and if there is an ally you guys have is CRA. And in the last ceiling, you have seen what we have done for you, even though Senate is the one who has taken away your money. So with that few remarks, I want to say thank you very much. I've come to the end of my presentation, and feel free to ask questions. CRA is your ally. Asanteni sana.
Commissioner Gedi, if I can indulge you, please don't go away. May you please have a seat. I'd like you to be a member of the panel that's going to come forth for discussion. Let me recognize the presence of our speakers from different counties here today. Hamjambo. Karibani, mtusalimie tu kwa hewa kidogo. Asanteni sana. Thank you so much. Makofi kwao tafadhali. Because I want us to keep time, or make use of the available time that is here with us today, let me very quickly introduce members of the panel today, as we keep in mind that we're discussing general session number 3 on your programs, day 2, which is number 19. And the topic is the fourth generation revenue sharing formula. And the question we're asking is whether it's a fair share or flawed model. Very quickly, let me introduce first onto the stage a gentleman that you all are familiar with. He's the Chief Executive Officer of the Institute of Economic Affairs, also known as IEA Kenya, a public policy think tank based in Nairobi, Kenya. Prior to his service as a CEO, he worked in the same organization as for its economic regulation program and wrote policy briefs and participated in policy dialogue in competition policy, employment economics, and also regulation policy. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Mr. Kwame Owino. Karibu sana on stage. Please take the middle seat. Let me also invite on stage the Honorable Graham Kagali, all the way from the county of Migori. Karibu sana mheshimiwa. Asante sana. Thank you. I know we ambushed you, lakini najua uko tayari kwa mazungumzo. Let me also invite on stage the Honorable Gad Olina, all the way from the county of Kisumu. Karibu sana, and thank you so much for agreeing within short notice to be a member of our panel. Let me invite on stage also Dr. Boniface Erute Ekabaten, the Honorable Chair, Public Accounts Committee, all the way from the county of Busia. Asante sana, makofi. And now, ladies and gentlemen, let me invite the most important gentleman here today. Manake, he'll take us through the program. He's the Executive Director of Bajeti Hub, and he's conducted several seminars to create programs, sessions on developing fiscal laws and policies, and as with his wealth of experience, he has been able to rebrand and lead transformative public finance work at Bajeti Hub and reach the fellows and the members together with critical insights on transparent and participatory fiscal governance. He has a wealth of 15 years in matters finance. Put your hands together for able moderator for today, Dr. Abraham Rugo. Karibu sana. Asante sana. Naomba microphones tafadhali zidi kwenye stage. Karibu sana.
Thank you very much, and my pleasure to meet you, ladies and gentlemen. At one point I was worried it will be a manel, and in this day and age, manels are not encouraged. That's panels full of men only. Colleagues, we just have about 30 minutes to be precise, and I would like us to just jump straight in. We have listened to Commissioner Fatuma very keenly presenting on the basis and the reasoning. Three sentences or rather statements seem to be very critical. The first one is population, and it's a measure of what? Population. I think I had her talk about all these other measures are measures of population. Population is a measure of these other things. That, I think, has come out quite strongly. Secondly, is data. I think there were enough slides just speaking about data, its acceptability, its availability, everything around it. But the last part, which for me, I think I would like to hear from all of you, is this language of winning and losing. So devolution was supposed to help us make progress as a country. And that progress, I believe, is that there is better service provision, be it in healthcare, in agriculture. And therefore, progress definitely means that where you are 10 years ago is not where you are today. You definitely need to be. But is it that we are we seemingly excited about progress in the negative sense? Because it's a measure of how much. So I'm going to start, right at the very end, just your first remark. What are you hearing? Three of you are in the county assemblies. Perhaps, as you say what you're hearing, what has been your experience the last 2-3 years? I don't know how long all of you have been in government. But I think I'll start with Gad at the very end. What are you hearing? Just 2-3 minutes on what's your first take. Each of us will get a moment, and then I'll come back to the next question.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. On the discussion of today, the CRA fourth revenue allocation, I want to say that it's long overdue for the Commission to get back to the basics. Because looking at how they are going to allocate or what they are going to allocate to us, money doesn't follow functions, because the devolved functions in the county governments, looking at what they're giving the county governments, is too little. And you wonder why a lot of money is remaining in the national government when the functions that are devolved are so many, things like agriculture, health, and all that. You find that we do as a county, like in terms of agriculture, it's devolved. We hire staffs for the agriculture production and all that for our people. But again, when the produce are now given out, or we get the produce, it's not in the county data records for them to help us get more revenue for the counties. You find that the records are with the national government. When you produce, let's say you go to counties like the Narok, Kitale, where they even produce maize. The results of the produce in terms of the quantities are not with the county governments. It is the national government. And again, they tell us they don't have the data. So this issue of data, it's that we need to have the, like National Cereals and Produce Board should be devolved so that when we know that Kisumu County produces what to the level, or to the national grid. But if you don't have that data, then we'll be lagging behind in terms of we are given less because lack of data in the county, but the national government that has the data remains with a lot of funds on the same. That happens also in terms of health and all that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let me turn to you, Graham, from Migori County. What are you hearing, and what was the first take you have on just what has been presented?
Thank you so much, moderator. My name, once again, is Graham Kagali, the chairperson, Budget and Appropriations Committee, Migori County. Moderator, I just need to be very open that as she was presenting, I was really excited on some issues. But the data issues actually, let me use the word, pissed me off. Why? We have two major organs of this government. One is the Kenya Bureau of Statistics. What is it doing? Two, the Ministry of Planning and Development. What is it doing? What is the data coming, what data are they giving us? And then there's something about data that I also got a little bit disappointed about, is that the CRA gets information. Does it have other countermeasures to follow up where the data came from? Do they have a countermeasure? If they've been told that there is a reduction in bed occupancy, are they finding out why? Or are they just saying these are unstable data? Because when you look at our government facilities, truth be said, our hospitals, the common man is losing interest in that because there's a rise of private hospitals. Is this reduction of bed capacity because most of our patients going to private hospitals, are they actually making sure that they're getting a counter check to the data so that we are able to move to the next level? The other issue is population. From everyone's know is that we base population issues on census. What census or what data of census we're using now is historic. Do they have a flexible way of actually having a projection? Because 2005 and 2019, that is 6 years. The population is not the same. And if they're basing that on 2019, we are actually heading to a more challenging situation in terms of revenue allocation. So it is something that we need to really check very broadly so that the counties don't suffer. Thank you.
Thank you. Kwame, as you come in, just on what you're hearing, this data question, is it an availability or an acceptability?
Well,
as you give your remarks.
Well, it looks like it's both, right? Some data is certainly not available. And to be honest, it's not necessarily the fault of the national statistics. They produce a ton of data for very little money. So the problem that counties have collectively...
Kwame, please, mic closer. Yeah.
All right. The problems that I personally read the judgment, and I think we need to be kinder because the court's decision was not necessarily that the National Bureau of Statistics was wrong. The court's decision was that there was uncertainty given some events that happened again, which means obviously that verification and credibility of data becomes an issue. But that's separate. Let's go now to my impressions. My impressions are this. I like the fact, and thanks to the commissioner for bringing us from the second, the third, and the fourth, so that we're comparing like for like. And one of the things that I've seen, which I think is a good thing, we have to admit that in generating a formula for distribution, or rather for the allocation of revenue between counties, right? There are judgment calls that are made. This thing is not perfect science. There are judgment calls that are made. So transparency around what decisions have been made is a good thing. So that's one. One of the things that's been not necessarily disappointing, but concerning for us at the Institute of Economic Affairs, when you take a very quantitative approach, where you have 8 different variables, and then you say health is this amount, agriculture is this amount, population is this amount, you're giving the impression that it's a very specific scientific thing, and then generating the kind of political rhetoric that we had a couple of years back. That's not. What I think the fourth formula tells me, regardless of how we've reached it because of the absence of data or whatever, is look, it is simple, it is easy to explain, and it is predictable. And in my view, that is how public affairs should be conducted. There'll be no perfect knowledge to ever at any one time allow us to design a formula. So for that reason, I give the staff who worked at the CRA the chops for actually making it predictable, transparent, and it's also something we can have a conversation about. We can discuss whether population should be 42 or not, but we know what population is, and we know what the source is. So it's a good thing, and it's credit to them. The second thing that I'll end here is, I think you've also made a good decision by saying there's no reason to design a formula. I mean, I think it's remiss. It's a bad thing to design a formula as a professional when the data doesn't exist, because then you get caught in what you have been caught in here. So the point is to say, because we want this to be about distribution, all Kenyans matter, and all Kenyans are distributed around the counties, which is part of the territory. Let us use the measures that give us the opportunity for people to actually interact with that data, and also for public participation to be meaningful. Because if it is too complex, you actually isolate people and generate the political rhetoric that we do. So I think the professional cover comes from the fact that we all know the geographic size, and you've done a good thing by saying, because the geography sizes matter, you've capped it by saying, look, we'll cap the 10, right? 1 point at 10. I'm just wondering why you did not cap that for population as well. But on the whole, we have a simpler, a smart, and a more transparent method. Now let's hope we can persuade the Senate to not tinker too much with it by trying to revise things, that there'll be no perfect method. And going towards more simplicity, and where the data sources are, we can verify for ourselves that this is the right job. And the justification for it is something that, in my view, this is progress in the way that revenues will be distributed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kwame. I come to you, Dr. Rute. You have worked in both worlds. First, what's your impression of this? But looking at it, do you get a sense that we are actually making progress, or are we going back? Put it on, please.
Thank you so much. I think one thing I want to appreciate, that the presentation has opened our eyes, probably for the rumors we're hearing. One rumor that we've been hearing is that the funds allocated to the counties has been reduced. That, for instance, we were looking, we can say, Busia County, and more specifically the county assembly's budget has been cut by about 86 million. And the same to other counties. I don't know how true that is, but that's something that's been our fear as we're coming over here to confirm. I have worked with the county government as an officer before, and just as it's been envisaged that the purpose of ensuring resources are distributed equitably as opposed to spur growth within these particular counties. And more specifically to those small counties that have not been able to get equal attention from the previous regimes or form of government. And what has been disturbing me from the parameters that has been put in the third revenue allocation formula is that admission by the Commission that the parameters that are touching more specifically on counties that feel disadvantaged by the previous government's form of governance have not been considered. Take blue economy. Which counties are they affected? The vulnerable counties. Water and sanitation. Which counties are affected? Those that need to be propelled up. The issue of fiscal responsibility. Was the Senate avoiding that particular parameter because of their insatiable appetite to become governors? Equally, look at an environment, a critical factor that has a bigger impact on common population. Also, it has been neglected or rejected from that formula. And I was expecting the force sharing formula, those areas that were having gaps would have been considered. Is it that we failed to provide data, or it was a scheme to still support those counties that have a big advantage in terms of development? Because we appreciate development is a multi-dimensional concept. And you cannot move away from the sectoral approach, which the Commission has indicated has moved away from it. But to my surprise, they are still picking the aspect of sectoral data to help support the other parameters, e.g. population. You're talking about health. Which data are you using? You're talking about infrastructure. Critical. And today, what are we going to pose a measure of differentiating the development status of a county compared to the other? You talk about water, you talk about availability of tarmac roads, accessibility, you talk about how they're managing environment, among others. So, in the presentation I heard, and it was there, that they've moved away from the sectoral approach, yet they are still relying on that sectoral data to help inform how resources are allocated. And finally, we're talking about equitable sharing of these resources, embracing the disparities within and among counties. What is forming these disparities? If they are not pegged on the critical factors that inform development as a multidimensional concept, touching on politics, economics, social aspect, and environment, among others.
Thank you. Critical questions you asked there, and I want to come back to you, Commissioner. There are two issues that seem to be coming up that I would like you to speak to. Is the Commission making the assumption that the more people you have, the more the need, and the less people you have, the less the need? Because when you put a parameter like population at that level, there are certain assumptions you are making. I know you've said about aggregating, but a big population, say in Nairobi, does not necessarily mean that there is more health burden, for instance. It could as well be that another county has a lower population but has a higher health disease, or has poorer access to roads and the like. That's one question I think we could clarify a bit, because that has been the debate from Formula One. Do we use population as a proxy? You know? And then when you separate even the poverty line, that's still a population number, but there's a very specific thing you're targeting, because those are people who are below a certain poverty line. Perhaps you could expound a bit. The second one is this income distance. And when you were talking, I think I felt like we are all not quite getting it. In this day and age, is it right to peg Marsabit County, and is purely figurative, against the income of Nairobi County, which benefits from economic activity in Marsabit? In other words, Nairobi County is a beneficiary of many externalities, of businesses, even tea farms that are in Kericho have their offices here in Nairobi. Perhaps you could expound on those two, just for our clarity, on what are the assumptions that the Commission is making on those two aspects.
Thank you very much. When you listen to my presentation, I emphasized those population because I knew those questions will come. But looking at the parameters, the entire parameters that we've just presented, population is not the main parameter. But again, resources to the people. Even those small counties with small counties, there are people who live in that county. But when you look at the other parameters, there is a land area aspect at 9%, and somebody asked, I think it's Kwame, who said, why didn't you cap population and you're capping land? And we have to carry everybody. The same population at 42. When you look at the third formula, the population was 79. 79%. It carried out of 100%. You see? So what we've done, we removed all those sections, parameters that are population duplicated. And then we reduced population to 42. But in that parameter, there is poverty, there are issues of, there is land area at 9%. So why land area at 9%? There's those small counties now you're comparing with Nairobi, they have vast counties. The land is vast. So they benefit resource based on the land. There are these ones that get through poverty. So we're trying to balance so that you don't also discriminate populous county, because resources again is to the people. So those small counties again, there are people live in those counties. So that is what I will say. But again, that question came. In the last formula, you remember how people fought? The formula had a lot of challenge. It had to have like 11 adjournments in the Senate just because of the same question you asked. So even when when we simulate 42%, it's not that populous counties are getting more money. You can see 42 and you think all the money is going to population. No. There are different parameters with weights that balances the entire country. And that is what I will say for that. For the issue of the income distance, at a later stage, I'll ask my technical person to expound on that, Lynette. It's not, you have to compare Nairobi. Nairobi is the highest GCP per capita. That is not something that, it's a fact. But when you compare with Mandera, how else then will you calculate the gap? Because Mandera, for example, or Marsabit, they have the lowest. So we're trying to balance the GCP, the income distance, so that those counties that are down, we bring them up. So you have to compare with Nairobi, because Nairobi has the highest GCP. And that is not, it is not a distance of giving money from one county to another, but rather the gap, in terms of even development gap. When you look at Nairobi and Marsabit, honestly, can you compare Nairobi and Marsabit? In fact, in terms of the infrastructural facilities, the roads, the water and everything, to Marsabit. So you see, a parameter like income distance is the one now compensating for population, especially the counties that we've just mentioned that are small and they don't have a lot, many people.
Thank you. I have so many questions.
Just one thing that I think that it's very important. Yeah. Money should follow functions. I think somebody spoke about that. And especially he mentioned about agriculture. This commission, by the way, on the record, we went before the Senate to, and explain to them and urge them to support counties' functions. National governments are doing county functions. Every year, budget is being appropriated for functions that are supposed to be county functions. For example, health and agriculture. And you mentioned a very important issue, like the fourth schedule, number 8, on statistics. Counties themselves are supposed to pass a law to help them now, to help them now get the data that they want, especially on the crops that you've mentioned. But again, CRA, we've really honestly helped or, be with the people and evolution. And from the record, and when you see the third formula, when we used the sectoral parameters, we've noticed you allocate money based on sectoral parameter. Then when the money goes to the counties, governors don't use those resources for intended purposes. Some of them, they put the entire budget in, let's say, roads, which is not their function. Some of them, they put the money in, let's say, water, and they leave agriculture. How many governors, when we look at the statistics and the need that we have, most of the counties, we were allocating money based on sectoral. Let's say we give money to agriculture, but they use less than 2% for agriculture.
But Commissioner, somebody could argue that perhaps then that's not a problem you can solve through the formula.
Yeah.
Because really, all these functions still have to be budgeted for. And interestingly, because this is the county assemblies are here and they're the ones who actually approve the budgets. The chair of the budget committee is here. But guys, I know we have a lot of things I want to ask the panelists, but I want to turn this now to the audience. And if I can get 3-4 hands of people who would like to make comments, I will appreciate. I'll just go around and then I'll come to the panelists and ask, how then do we make this move forward? What are we trying to solve? And how do we actually achieve that? Because now what the commissioner has finished on almost suggests we are trying to solve a very different problem, with a formula. And we all know it's not a magic bullet. I think that we agree. But how do we make sure that we are making progress? So I'm going to go around. I'll start from these far ends so that people don't say, I'm not looking at them. Any hand, anybody who wants to make a comment? Okay, I have 2 hands on this row. I'll start with the gentleman at the very back, and then the lady in black, and then I'll come to the speakers, the 2 of you. Let's start with the gentleman at the very, you can my mic. I can share my mic if there is no other extra mic. Please keep your remarks. If it's a comment, happy for that. If it's a question, make it very precise. And please introduce yourself.
Okay, thank you. My name is Sospita Mombi, MCA for Isambo Ward in Nairobi County. Now, number 1, with the CRA, do you have an avenue of developing a formula for distribution at ward level? Once the money is received at the county level, how again do we have a formula that trickles down to establish equality at ward level? Because currently we are left under the mercies of the governor, and again, allocation are allocated based on political emotions or where someone feels like it's their bedroom.
Thank you. Kindly, allow me to give you just one. Kindly. In the interest of time, kindly.
It's very important.
Everything is important,
very
allow
important.
me to give everybody one comment.
Very important. Kindly allow me to say this, because this country, we've been focusing more on revenue allocation. But the question on strategies that we put in terms of trying to generate revenue, we don't have that. And I want to go back to the data, the question on data. Now, come to Roysambo as a ward, for example. 228 million is what is expected to be raised in terms of target for the year. And that now translates to the 19 billion that their own source revenue is required for Nairobi County. It forms part of that. The question is, because we have the 228, which again is broken down to the revenue streams in terms of land rates, in terms of license, in terms of parking, which translates to 228 million. The question is, where is this data that now demystifies, or rather breaks down in terms of the pieces of land when we talk about land rates? How many? Are we talking about 10,000? Are we talking about the businesses as 2,000 in terms of licenses? So that now we begin to ask ourselves, at the end of the year, how much have we generated as Roysambo Ward vis-a-vis the target, 228 million? And now that will give us the question, or rather will respond to the question, if we collected 12.8 billion as a county against the 19 billion, where did we go wrong? Who is this? Where is this data now that gives us the people or the individuals who fail to remit?
Thank you, Sos
whatever
Peter.
resource?
Point
Thank
made.
you.
Thank you very much. Let's come to the lady in black, and then I come to the two speakers, and then I come back to the panelists.
Thank you very much. My name is Honorable Mercedes Scholastic Amado from Siaya. He already asked my first question, and that's my concern. That at the county level, I will have to ask it so that it is amplified. At the county level, there's no formula, and I am a victim myself that I represent a ward which is very large. But at the end of it, I get the same amount of money like everybody else, and I'm getting a raw deal. The other question now, this is my question, is CRA seems to have given up on all these issues of data, lack of data, and also the issue of fiscal prudence. This is one country, and if you want to move forward, these are issues that we've got to demand that they are addressed so that we can move forward. You can imagine my own shock when the county and ask for data for my ward. There was nothing. So even now as I operate from zero. I just what people want, but there's no data to support that. And we need fiscal prudence in this country to deal with bad leaders. Then, only then will our electorates realize that they have got to elect the right people in those leadership positions. Thank you.
Good. Thank you very much. I will come to the two speakers right here in front. Kindly, I'll come back to you. You'll be there. Because I didn't see any hand on this, and yeah, none. Please.
Thank you, Moderator. Allow me to make an observation as a speaker that the responsibility of oversighting revenue collection at the county government is the responsibility of the county assembly.
Correct.
Not CRA. And number two, you don't require national legislation through Senate or Parliament to have an equitable formula on how to distribute county budget into wards to villages. It's a prerogative, responsibility of the county assembly. You legislate, the governor to assent. If he doesn't assent, a memorandum, you overthrow the memorandum, you have a law. So you have the power, you have the authority. My question was to CRA, that is it presumed that COG, Council of Governors, is a representative of county assembly arm of government? Because the point is when the finance bill, the recent one, was being formulated, the views of county assemblies were not sought, but views of COG were sought by CRA, and therefore was it presumed that governors are representatives of assembly arms of government?
Thank you, Bwana Speaker. Please, you didn't tell us your name. Not all of us know you.
My name is Douglas Bilu, Speaker, County Assembly of Makueni.
Thank you very much. The gentleman, the Speaker, and that's next to you.
Thank you. My name is Lantano Nabala, Speaker, Laikipia County.
Pleasure.
My concern came up from the allocation on population 42 and geographical area is 9%.
Correct.
I am thinking our request if this can have a different way of working it out. And I'm going to say this. I'll take, for example, Laikipia County. Geographically, you can fit in Nyeri, Nyandarua, Kiambu, Kirinyaga inside Laikipia County. The population of Laikipia County is about 500,000. Kiambu is about 1.7 million. If we go per population to a very high percentage, when will ever these other counties develop that were neglected since ever we got independence? Thank you.
Thank you, Bwana Speaker. The lady, just give the lady and she'll be the last one for now. We come back to the panelists.
Thank you very much. My name is Rachel McKenna from ECD Network for Kenya. I'm here as a partner. My question goes to the commissioner when she talked about you moving away from sectoral when it comes to allocation. And now I'm looking at the ECD. During our conversation with my other members of ECD, we're looking at lobbying for ring-fencing of ECD allocation so that we can have like ECD money being used for ECD, considering this our foundation where all of us came from. So I'm wondering if we are moving away from sectoral, and the justification was it is due to the unavailability of data, then, because I know we have a lot of data at the ECD, then what avenues do we use so that that data can reach the commissioner's maybe team, so it can be like, instead of it being looked at sectoral, it can be looked at as a standalone item. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That will be the last intervention, comments, some of them questions. I'll come back here and I'll finish with you, Commissioner. I know some of the questions were to you. But if you were to make improvements, if you were to make this work, what would you do? And I'm here focusing on the three gentlemen first who will sit in the county assemblies, and then I'll go to Kwame, and this will be basically your final remarks, and then I finish with the Commissioner, kindly.
Thank you very much. You see, from where I sit, we are looking at the CRA as if it's work for the counties only, and not for the whole government. Looking at the parameters made by the CRA on the fourth schedule, revenue schedule, you look at an issue. Acre of land in Mandera County, just for an example. And therefore, what is the value of the land in Mandera, and what do they need for that land to be done? Is it a national government function, or is it a county government function? If it's a vast piece of land, they need security, which is a national government thing. They need electricity, that's a national government function. They need things like accessibility in terms of roads. That's why we have the road from where to where, where to where, and where to where. Those are things that are done by the national government. So when you're giving the counties their revenue, then I think the issue of geographical thing doesn't make much of a need, because we are looking at the services that are devolved. The services that are devolved are health, those things like agriculture. We need to see that if an area is producing so much, then they need to be given so much to produce more so that the county become more stable. Again, on the issue of income distance, there are situations in this country where you want to use a data that is not stable, like what the commissioner said. Because we know that when immediately after every elections, we have like our 6 months period of grace where we are losing 2 billion per year in terms of Amanda and all that. Then you want to take that data and use it for the next 5-6 years. It's not going to be accurate in terms of what they are trying to gap. So from where I sit, I want to believe that if you look at geographical area in terms of, as a parameter in revenue allocation, then can we look at it in terms of what it's producing to the county? What value does it bring to the county, so that when we give it money, we add more revenue from that land, not specifically. But lastly, if you allow me, I've heard from what the Speaker of Makwena said, that members have the authority. And it's the same speakers who will say as many of the same opinion have it, and they take a budget to the governor that members doesn't agree to. I want to believe that if you are going to allocate funds towards we need a formula, a national formula, so that it's not dictated by the governor and his proxies at the county, and other people will lose. It should be a national thing so that the CRA, with the records and the data they have, they should know that if you come to Southwest Nyakacho I represent, this is the number of people, this is what they need, and then the allocation goes directly to them instead of going again to be supervised by somebody at the county level and being misadvised, and majority takes control and the rest lose out. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I pass to you, Graham.
Thank you so much. One of the items and the biggest challenge that we have is Article 217. It's a big challenge. It's a challenge in a way, in this way. One, we are having the senators and the members of National Assembly, members of county, National Assembly, yes, determine what goes to the counties. None of the two categories are fully interested in the counties. In most cases, it is about competition. The MPs are supposed to oversight the national government. They will not definitely want more to go to the resources down here because of issues of competition and all that. The senators, as just one of us has said, are very ambitious looking at what next after their position. So to an extent, they'll want to curtail development by actually making sure that there is limited going to their own areas. That's why the commissioner summarized by saying we have a challenge with them. So it is something that we need to work on and bypass. I want to echo what my colleague has actually said, because I was to say that it is important that this formula comes from the CRA. And apart from CRA having this formula all the way to the wards, they also need to help the counties monitor their own source revenues. It's one of the very important ones. But there's no officer from CRA, there's no support in terms of even digitizing and all that. And CRA has actually let counties do what they want, and you're actually losing monies in that regard. Monies that could have gone back to the people, but not to the individual pockets. The other issue is that she summed up by saying that no county lost, but in our situations, the county assemblies are really bearing the brunt of this. We have lost 4 billion nationally, as all the counties. So I wonder what really CRA is after, because once the county assemblies are actually limping in terms of empowerment, there's no way the oversight function will be so strong. The other issue is that when looking at the assemblies, do they look at other parameters? The assemblies have undergone a lot. There's inflation. The price of fuel right now is not the same. The price of issues that actually go around the assembly are not the same. Do they consider that before actually denying an assembly over 50 million in one financial year and in mid-financial year? How do they expect this other arm to support the government in terms of development? So there's something that needs to be done by the CRA to ensure that we are all in a, let me say, in a more comfortable zone. There was an issue of additional of 30 billion in their proposals. I don't know whether the commissioner went through the budget circular by the CS, the recent one for this one. We need that money actually as soon as today. Because one, the counties are actually undergoing a lot of stress with the reduction of donor support. So it is important that some of the questions here should not be actually debated. They should be actually implemented to the core and very fast, so that we can have survival, especially after the Trump effect on the counties. Finally, we shall work on, I agree that we need to work on the policies, on the regulations that will help us streamline so many other issues at the county assembly. My question is, are the blessings going to be there? That is the biggest question, that CRA should come in and help us get this to the next level. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm not too sure CRA, even if willing, can do all the asks you have made. But yes, are critical. let me come to you, Mheshimiwa, first before I go to Kwame. How do we make this work? Because really, we are agreeing that the formula is not a magic bullet that can solve all the issues, but we still need a mechanism of distributing resources across the 47 governments, the 47 county governments. Where do we go from here?
Thank you so much. I think the first issue is the stakeholders made a statement in the third revenue sharing formula. Parameters which the Commission did not consider. Can the Commission purpose to fast track those parameters, which are the thing that's affecting most of the counties, most of the wards that we are representing? The issue of blue economy, the issue of water, the issue of environment, the issue of fiscal responsibility. Those are matters that we still persist and request they should be looked at in detail as a consideration on a way going forward. Two, I'm also disturbed. Does the commissioner have the ability to look for data that's supposed to help them discharge their mandate? Because if they cannot get reliable data, and from the presentation, the commissioner did indicate of unreliability of some data that they were given when they were matching up the data from 2017 to 2023 and others. I think data here is the determining thing. If you get the wrong data, you'll not be able to plan. Then I still believe that we cannot run away from the sectoral approach. We cannot run away. When we are campaigning as elected members now and nominated, what are we telling the people? These are the critical service areas for the people. How can you fail to consider water and sanitation as a key parameter? Infrastructure, how can you leave it aside? And most importantly, again, I was saying, let our leaders at the National Assembly, not the National Assembly and the Senate, look at the people of Kenya. Why will they run away from the aspect of if you use misappropriate public resources, that you are left to go scot-free, or no consequence attached to it? Those are the areas we have to have a debate. And as I conclude, I'm persuaded to ask the commissioner, the members of County Assembly are passionately pushing the idea of Ward Development Fund. Ward Development Fund. What is your take? What is the take of the commission? And we are saying, can we have 40% or thereabout of the county development budget to go to the wards? They should be able to give us their insight on that particular matter. Equally, the issue of on-source revenue. The counties, before devolution, or the municipalities, the town councils, the county councils, were able to raise more revenue. But the issue of giving money from Nairobi to the counties had made some governors sleep on the job. We have the potential. Busia has told is a potential of collecting 1.8 billion, yet we are collecting 322 million. What are we able to do? Then finally, as I conclude on the issue of autonomy of assemblies, is another critical thing. How can we oversight the executive with minimal resources? You are killing an oversight role. That is a concern.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before I give to Kwame, I actually want to throw this ball back. One of the issues that you have raised about ensuring that OSR, and there's a whole session in the afternoon on that, is why are we not collecting more? I actually think that's the role of the county assembly to be able to help answer those questions, because you are the guys on the ground. You know, you're the ones who pass the law, the oversight role. But I hear you. But I want to just throw the ball back to you. Kwame, where do we go from here?
All right, I'll make 2 points. I think the first one is, one, the CRA is a creation of the Constitution. It has been provided with certain responsibilities which are grave. Those responsibilities don't go to ensuring political accountability by governors. That is your role as members of the assembly. Please do your jobs. it is unfair to ask the commission to say, look, we don't like the way Governor X distributes money within County Y. And for that reason, we want you to impose a formula for him to follow, he or her to follow. Even if the CRA was to do that, the first thing tomorrow would be in the courts, and the courts would say the CRA is not doing its job, or rather, is overreaching. So guys, let's accept the constitutional order in which we live. It has provided responsibilities for county assemblies. That is why you have fantastic politicians who can go out there and get thousands of votes. If the governor is not listening to you, please mobilize your political capital and bring them to the table. That is the way constitutional order works. So asking the CRA to develop formulas and impose them upon you is a risky thing to start doing, because you're asking them to wade into politics. That's not right, and they're not fit for that purpose. So please do your jobs. Make sure that if you want more revenue collected, you pass the revenue bills that ensures that that money is collected. Why? Because it's the people who elected you who are going to have to pay for that revenue. So that's the first point. The second point is, look, I was asked about how the formula could be improved. I think it's a fantastic progress from what we had before. And I have a different view from all of you. Again, the function of the CRA regarding the formula is to provide a formula that allows for the allocation of revenue among yourselves. It is not to determine your priorities about where to distribute sectoral money. That, again, is the responsibility of the counties. And you need guidance from your speakers about how you do that. It is just guidance. You cannot be told that if you come from Siaya County, for instance, malaria is such an important thing and you should dedicate money for it. That's the reason you're elected. So if you want ward money to go to, you want money to be specifically dedicated to malaria or any other thing, you do that within the assembly grounds. That's why you have the powers. Your standing orders should allow for that. If it is insufficient, then there's political work to be done. Please, again, do not surrender your responsibilities to the CRA. It will not happen, and you'll generate conflict across with the institutions. So what this is telling me is that there's a lot of work that county assemblies need to do about disciplining governors with the expenditure of money and ensuring that oversight that takes place is sufficient, and perhaps that's a conversation you can have with the Senate and your brothers at the National Assembly. Let's not mix and match people's work depending on what the political experience is. But what could be improved? I think that if you look at the new formula and it has the final two, poverty and the income distance. Let me first say one thing. I think that it might be impolite to say, but only people consume services. People consume services. So the fact that a big share of the distribution is on the basis of population is a sensible proposal. You might not agree with 42, but a service is not provided to a ground. It is provided to people. If you go to Siaya County, for instance, I mentioned that's what I'm familiar with, you're not distributing money so that the governor can distribute it to the ground. It's being distributed because there are women, men, and children who live in Siaya County who have rights as citizens to receive certain services. So the population factor, in my view, is a sensible one. But let me come about the improvement. The improvement is this, a proposal. 14% of this new of the fourth formula as proposed is talking about dedicating it to the poverty index. And then the second part is the income distance. I actually think those things are probably measuring the same thing. If you put them together and then decide to place 27%, it would have more ground to cover with allocations towards making the formula again simpler, but at the same time making sure that you're actually distributing a bigger quotient on the basis of poverty numbers. And poverty numbers matter because, yes, Nairobi is a rich place, but if you look at it again, it also has the highest number by virtue of the fact that it's 9% of the Kenyan population. A large number of people who live within Nairobi are also receiving, a need of public services because they live in very bad conditions. So it's not, I actually think it would take the wisdom of Solomon to improve this formula greatly. What we have here, in my view, if it could get your support, would be useful for letting the Senate to guide us all in the right place. So I will not say that there's a perfect formula, but I'm thinking the poverty part and the income distance part are actually probably measuring the same thing from different sides. And if they could be merged, or perhaps have the amount distributed equally, because it's 14 and 13, perhaps 12.5%, 13.5% for each, that would be a useful thing. But I don't think that there's enough money coming from national government, which is, in my view, where you should actually be arguing for more money between the allocation, the division of revenue law, as opposed to fighting each other over small amounts of money here and there and talking about losing counties and losing people. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kwame. And finally, Madam Commissioner, your final words as also you respond to some of the questions. Some of them actually will come in the other sessions. Please.
Thank you very much. Kwame, thank you very much. You've spoken for me. You've said everything. And I agree with you. The formula is not a budgeting tool, it's an allocation tool. And then county assemblies, somebody said lost 4 billion. Yes, but in the ceiling, CRA, as I said when I was presenting, CRA, we were objective. We helped the county assemblies. What happened in the Senate? We were not consulted. We were not called, we were not consulted. In fact, we raised, I remember my vice chair was here, chaired that meeting. We were very mad with the Senate. How can they amend CARA? You know, you cannot amend CARA, it's illegal to start with. And if they're reducing the 2 billion, why do they target the county assemblies and not the executive? And that is our position as CRA. And thank you very much. A gentleman asked whether COB is an extension of CRA. Sorry, COG is an extension of the assembly. When we were engaging, we engaged both the CAF, led by the leadership here, they came to the office. We don't meet one group and leave the others. That is not us. We are Equity Commission. We met COG, yes, but again, equally, we met CAF leadership in the same office and the same day. So I just wanted to tell you that so that you're comfortable. Then the other thing is on the blue economy issue. Yes, I agree, Mheshimiwa, with you. We, in fact, and as I said, we did a letter to the ministry and the KNBS. And we followed, me personally, I went to the office to follow up because blue economy is so dear to me. And I know what it means, blue economy, especially counties that are the coastal counties, western counties, and the Nyanza counties. I know those counties have been marginalized and poor people live in those counties. So for me, I really wanted to see this formula, blue economy, we use blue economy as a parameter. But unfortunately, as I said, we have a country where the data is the way I said. So I think we need to have a conversation. The leadership, you as MCAs, the Senate, National Assembly, governors, and CRA, we are even willing to spearhead that conversation so that we get accurate data, not only for blue economy, but all the other issues that we've raised. Sanitation and water is also key. Even where I come from, water is a problem, by the way, but there's nothing we can do. Women, walk kilometers and kilometers to go fetch water. And that water, you can imagine, they cannot drink that water. It's not even fit for human consumption. Part of Marsabit, part of Tana River, this country, name it, Ukambani, Kitui. But what do? The Constitution says CRA, we are mandated, yes, but we can only rely on the data from an institution of KNBS. We cannot generate our own data. But it's a conversation that we need to have, all of us, so that going forward, we get this country stable data. And the other thing, there's a Mheshimiwa who asked whether we can budget. I don't want to go. Two people spoke about it. In Article 206, the Equalization Fund, we are the ones who identify unit areas. And recently, I'm sure you know that currently we have the second policy in running. Soon we'll be coming up with a third policy. Equalization fund runs all the way to the sub-locations. So we have, yes, a mandate, but we cannot interfere with county government budgeting for its those are your legislation role, and please and fight for your space. Use your powers to make sure you governors are accountable for the resources that we allocate, and you come with proper legislations to make sure you have powers and you allocate money as per the Constitution. Lastly, the Mheshimiwa from Laikipia, I agree, yes, Laikipia is bigger than Nyeri, Muranga, and Kirinyaga combined. But when you look at the table I just presented, Laikipia, you're getting more money than those counties. Reason being, because of the land area. We acknowledged your land area is bigger than all those combined. So even getting an additional $1 billion, I think, close to the $1 billion. Why? Because of the land. So the formula was not, our formula is not to discriminate counties or Kenyans, rather to bring everybody together and make sure that it's not only population that we've considered, but also people, the small counties. We used affirmative action, and counties that are vast, like Laikipia and Marsabit County. I think moderator, I've just finished, and if you allow me, I have my vice chair. You can just say hi, and if my technical person, if there's anything I've left, if you can give her 1 minute, just for her only.
Unfortunately, I will not do that. I respect them, and
Okay.
I know, please, Vice Chair, kindly take note of that. And I also know Lynette is here.
Yes.
Great work.
And Sheila and Carol, they're
but
here.
because we are pressed of time, I want to thank you. Help me appreciate the panelists and the commission for this. I think it will be wrong to say that this conversation can end here. That the conversation can end here. But I think there are two things that are emerging, which I think it's important for everybody in the room, especially our honorable members, to carry home. One is that we have an accountability problem, and accountability problems cannot be solved through formulas. They are political questions, they are matters of procedure, they are matters of enforcement. And that can only be done through the necessary procedures that you run, whether it's the accountability committees, budgeting committees, sectoral committees. That's first. But secondly, there is a bigger conversation to discuss, as she has said, and this has to do with how do we generate data, but not just data, development data. Data that helps us to plan for our development. So whether you are thinking about blue economy, whether you are thinking about early childhood, whether you are thinking about ICT infrastructure, whether you are thinking about healthcare, we are not where we started. And it's time to actually have that, not only a conversation, but actually actions that guide us to get the rightful data. Because yes, you can still be talking about access to health facilities, but the needs of most of our counties have moved from just a facility. We are dealing with more, critical needs, critical illnesses, if you think about it, and the burden they are putting on us. But that's a conversation that I think will be picked, and some of it will come in the afternoon. So thank you very much, and I take this back to Bwana Nimrod. Thank you very much, and thank you for your patience.
Thank you so much. Makofi sana to our able moderator, Dr. Abraham Rugo, the Executive Director, Bajeti Hub, Commissioner Fatuma Gedi, Commission of Revenue Allocation. Asante sana. Dr. Boniface Erute, Chair Public Accounts Committee from Busia County Assembly. Thank you so much. Kwame Wino, the Chief Executive Officer, IEA. We also have Mheshimiwa Graham Kagali, all the way from Migori County, and Mheshimiwa Gad Olina. Thank you so much. I want to ask you politely now and kindly to leave the stage, and then we'll move on with the program. Thank you so much. Makofi kwa Ali. All right? A very brief announcement before we move on to the next speaker. We have a small engagement meeting taking place somewhere, and I would like to encourage the chairman, or the chairmen rather, and chair ladies of the education and agriculture committees from the counties. Please let us converge on second floor, room number 23. Only the chairmen and chair ladies of the education committees and agriculture committees, not everyone, all right? Just the chairman, to converge pale kidogo, second floor, room 23. May I now invite our next speaker, for a wonderful presentation, and the topic is resourcing counties through the effective transfer of functions. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome the Honorable Dr. Kipkurui Chepkonyi, MBS, and the Chief Executive Officer of Intergovernmental Technical Relations Committee. Tafadhali, tumpigie makofi anapokuja jukwani.
All right, thank you, Nimrod. The chair for County Assemblies Forum, the Secretary General, County Assemblies Forum, my good friend Chege Mwaura, and allow me to adopt all the other protocols that have been laid before me, and my colleague, members of County Assembly, allow me to say good morning. Good morning once again. I say my colleague MCS because that was a position I served the interest of the people of Tindred Ward for 10 years. So I still believe I am a member of County Assembly. So I am glad to stand before you today as the CEO for County Assembly, for IGRTC in the Governmental Technical Relations Committee. And I have a short presentation to be able to make, but I will make the first few comments, and I will invite my director, Victor Odanga, to take us to the detailed presentation in view of flow that I have. First, to introduce to you IGRTC. This is the institution that has been put by law to be able to coordinate the harmonious existence between the two levels of government, both national and county government. And based on the subject matter on functions, is one of the key mandates of IGRTC is to transfer functions and resources. And everyone knows this term that resources follow functions. If you would remember in 2012-2013, the Transition Authority, which existed before us, did transfer functions to both levels of government. And also resources were transferred to both levels of government. But the question is, was it concluded? Has it been concluded? When will it be concluded? Will it ever be concluded? The other question that keeps coming up is, are the resources to the counties and to the national government, are they sufficient? Are they commensurate to the functions to the counties? And so, the question I'm sure CRA must have been asked is, why do they allocate the counties the resources that they do? And CRA will tell you they are allocating resources to the counties based on the functions that have been assigned and allocated. And so, in our brief presentation, we are making this presentation based on a process that we just concluded through the unbundling, clarification of the functions that were transferred in 2013. That is to say, if you access the Gazette notice of 16th of December 2024, you will find we have gazetted functions to the counties and national government. But someone would be asking, so are we envisioning new resources to the county governments or to the national government? Then I would interest you to read through those Gazette notices, which, based on our assessment, we have gazetted per function according to Schedule 4 of the Constitution. Reason being that we have unbundled and clarified functions which were transferred in 2013. I take that you take keen interest on the words that we are using. Clarification and unbundling of functions. And also, you will find that there are new functions. So, new elements of functions. So there is no new function outside the assigned functions of the Constitution. And there are normally three functions, categories of functions. Let's go to page 1. Page 2. Exclusive functions, concurrent functions, residual functions. This is where the dispute has always been. We have exclusive functions. As per the Constitution, there were functions that were defined to be exclusively for national government, and there's those who have been defined for county government. Then we have concurrent functions. This is where most of the contention is all about, that they are appearing both for national and county government. So how do we share resources? To what extent that either level of government is going to be able to implement? Then we have residual functions. These are functions that were not assigned to either level of government as per the commencement of devolution. And so the Constitution defined residual functions, that residual functions are defined to be retained by the national government. I would also want to bring on board two other terms that may not be in the presentation, that realize Chapter 6 of the Constitution, Article 6 of the Constitution, as envisioned in the dependence between two levels of government. Remember, through the same Constitution, Article 189, it encourages both levels of government to collaborate and cooperate. So any function that is assigned by law to either level of government can be performed by another level of government through an agreement. That is why I give a good example of school feeding program in Nairobi City County Government. Nairobi City County Government has agreed with the national government that County Government of Nairobi implements the school feeding program. Yet school feeding program is a national function. So that is a very good example of a collaboration between two levels of government. So those are just precursors of what our presentation is going to be. And at the tail end, I would be inviting my director, Victor, if you'll notice my voice is drifting, that he will be able to take you through the process that we have been able to develop to reach where we are and where next we are taking the transfer of functions for us to be able to appreciate. So at this point, kindly allow me to invite Director Victor to be able to take us through the next steps on the transfer of functions. And at the tail end, I'll be making a comment, and if I'm allowed, as a former Secretary General of County Assemblies Forum, I'll just have one snippet to be able to mention to my colleagues. Thank you.
All right. All right. Thank you very much, CEO. And I'll be very quick because the CEO has fairly given us an introductory bit of it. And hopefully I can just get your attention for 10 minutes maximum, and then we shall be able to proceed to the next session. So if you go back to the first slide, I think this is just still part of our information sharing process. As IJTC, we have been engaged in this process for 2 years now. So our main objective today was to ensure that all of us are up to speed with what IJTC has been able to do over time. Now, if you go to the next slide, which the CEO was presenting on, indeed, this was the basis for which we did the work as IJTC. And when I say as IJTC, is that we have been an agency that has been consolidating consultations within all the other key stakeholders within this process. And the genesis of the work that we were doing was premised on the Constitution. And he's been able to rightfully talk about the exclusivity of the functions and the concurrency bit of the functions, and those functions that are not assigned by the Constitution that now have been left to the national government. Now, for us, the reason why this is important for us is for the sole reason, which he's also been able to say, that it informs the process leading to the revenue sharing. It informs the process leading to the revenue sharing, especially from an exclusive perspective and concurrent perspective. So if you go to the next slide very quickly, is that at the end of the day, this is where we are trying to facilitate the process leading to the resource sharing between the two levels of government. At the end of the day, and I think the CEO has been very critical to say that the key question has always been that the attendant resources must follow this function. As we're all aware, this may have been the proposal that is now before Parliament in terms of just trying to ensure that the resources for which CRA has come up with the formula is supposed to facilitate the reallocation of those resources amongst the 47 counties. Now, I'd like us to go into slide 7. You can skip the next 2 slides and you go to slide 7. And this slide gives an impression as to how we got to where we are as IJTC. Now, is to say that if we recall, there's been an activity, or rather the transition authority that was there from 2012 all the way to 2016. And its responsibility was to ensure that all devolved functions that is found in the 4th schedule, that is part 2, or rather part B of the 4th schedule, are unbundled and facilitated for transfer with the attendant assets. So as IJTC was coming in 2016, it already found that there's some progress that had been made. But now, fast forward to 2020 or 2022 thereabout, is that there have been emerging issues. So for us to conclude on the process, because if you look at the better plan, one of the key proposal or the recommendation which the government intended to do was to facilitate the completion and transfer of any pending functions to the county governments. So how we got here is that we carried a baseline assessment with the Council of Governors, and the reason why we did this with the Council of Governors was because they represent the executive arm of government, but also we talked to various counties separately, in addition to the Council of Governors. And there were emerging issues that led us now to carry out this unbundling and transfer function. And one of the issues was that there was need for further clarity of the functions that had previously been transferred. And the CEO has mentioned that before the Transition Authority had carried out certain transfer processes. But fast forward to 2022, it was important that we needed to relook into that which had already been done, because there was still existed some ambiguity, especially in the performance of those functions. But number 2 is that there are certain functions that were still assumed that the attendant-related resources had not been transferred. And so it disallowed the counties to optimally perform these functions. But then number 3 is that there was need for amendment of certain existing legislation. And I'll go very quick after this slide, because I'm just trying to form the basis for, to give you an impression of what we've been able to do, is that since 2013, it has been understood that the reason why counties may have optimally not been able to carry out the functions is that there did exist certain legislation at the national level that inhibited counties to fully take up these responsibilities. Now, some of this legislation also had resources attached to those functions that were still being retained by the national government. But the number 2 is that even post-2013 to 2023, there have also been some of new legislation that have come up that have continuously also been able to inhibit the uptake of these functions that have been assigned to the counties. And now if you go to perhaps slide 9, whatever I've discussed is what now led us to carry out this work that we were doing. And this is supposed to be also an information sharing platform, is that over and above the context that I've built on, is that if you look at what I'm presenting here, is that these are some of the functions, in fact, all the functions that were previously transferred to the counties through specific gazette notices that had been published either by the Transition Authority or the Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee, but had not been fully unbundled or clarified for purposes of them moving with the attendant resources that they should go with. So in agriculture function. So you can see the second column and the first column. The second column gives you the impression of where these elements of the functions falls in. If you go to the fourth schedule of the Constitution, Part B of that fourth schedule. So it starts with livestock in agriculture, all the way to function 14, and the different components. If you go to the next page of the presentation, is that you look at the first column, these are all the sub-functions that we were able to exhaustively be able to now analyze and clarify who does what, especially between the two levels of government, and where they fall within the main function in the fourth schedule of the Constitution. Now, so the output of this is that we have Gazette notice that the CEO was making an understanding of, which was published on the 16th of December. So what we have done as IJTC is publish every legal notice that has been embedded in that Gazette notice on all the functions that we have been able to unbundle and now transferring courtesy of that Gazette notice. So that Gazette notice that was published on 16th of December has all those functions, from agriculture all the way to the 14th function, which is ensuring coordination and the participation of communities. Now, the second bit of that, because transferring of the function is only concluded when equally the attendant resources are also facilitated for transfer. And that's where we are going next as IJTC. But it's to say that even during the process for which we were doing the unbundling and transfer, there did exist certain contention within certain aspects of these functions that we have entirely excluded out of the published Gazette notice, because we still need consensus between the two levels of government. And maybe that brings me to how we carried out this work. We carried out this work through a multi-agency approach, bringing on board the two levels of government, the counties and the national government, including even representation from the County Assembly Forum, which was part and parcel of the work that we did. And so through the unbundling, to ensure that the transfer of function process is effective, we also reviewed close to 100 pieces of legislation at the national level that were already previously identified to be inhibiting the effective uptake. A good example is if you look at, for instance, I will talk about a function 25, which is on child care facilities, is that there's already an act of parliament at the national level known as Basic Education Act. So we were able to go into those pieces of legislation to see how did they inhibit the effective uptake of the counties of this function. So we have reviewed that, and we have legislative report, which has culminated in IJTC, together with the stakeholders, also coming up with a bill that is supposed to be presented in Parliament, and the bill is supposed to help ensure that all those pieces of legislation that currently are either conceived to be clawing back on these functions would be reviewed by Parliament. And we have already presented some before the Senate Committee on Devolution, and we are slowly moving towards also engaging with the National Assembly. But like I said, if you go to the next slide very quickly, because I'm reminded of time, is that there are still certain areas that are still contentious that we intend to conclude on. You can proceed to slide 16, maybe, slide 16. Just proceed to slide 16. So as we get to the next steps, this is me giving you an impression that we have already unbundled these functions and we have facilitated their transfer. And now we are moving towards the next phase, which is identification of the attendant resources to move. But also, we are meeting with Parliament, that is the National Assembly and the Senate, to share in the proposed amendments that would facilitate the resource transfer is through a phased-out approach. What that means is that we shall be able to identify periodically, aligned with the budget-making process, on how these resources shall be able to be transferred. And the resources here are financial, the attendant assets and liabilities that are corresponding with the function, and the human resource, where there are still some that are still being retained by the national government. But then number 3 is sensitization of key stakeholders. And this is where also the county assemblies come on board. We have a robust framework on how we want to also engage with you to ensure that in as much as the counties are taking up these responsibilities, we also are able to partner with you to be able to come up with the county-specific corresponding legislation that will be able to anchor this function. And then submission of the proposed legislative amendments to Parliament through the respective channels. So lastly, because this is my last slide, please you go to the last slide, is that we have a transition plan on how we are going to carry out this work, but I will not go into it because it's lengthy. It's about 4 pages, but it's to give you an impression on the timelines. For instance, go to the next page. I think there's on that part, which is on output 4, on the transfer of functions and reports, we had said that we were going to engage with the county governments as a whole, that is through the county executives and the assembly, between February and June 2025. So that's my last slide, and perhaps now, CEO, you can come up and wind up. Thank you.
Thank you, Victor. Just to emphasize on that output 4. The reason why we are keen on output 4 is we've said that we are facilitating the National Assembly and Senate to be able to align current existing legislation with the transferred functions. It also means the county assemblies have to take up legislative processes to ensure those new elements, those new functions, those new delineated functions in the county governments are legislated for, to allow that the resources as they come, they find existing legislation. Because one of the gaps why national government has been taking a clawback on transferred functions is lack of policy and legislation in the counties. So I interest you kindly as county assemblies to take up that. Secondly, is that we are coming down to do sensitization on these legislations and the transfer of functions. So when we come to the counties, as we are inviting the county executive, as county assemblies, be very much interested in that process, especially as well on the issue of assets and liabilities that will be attendant to that function. As we speak now, we are transferring land and buildings to the county governments. Are the county assemblies involved? Are you aware that legal documents to the assets that you own are in the process of being transferred? So there is a robust program that we are going to roll out to the county assemblies, and we'll be reaching out to you. One message from your former Secretary General is the county assemblies have come a long way. If you take a study back and look at where we are in the future, with the progress that we are seeing in both legislation and financial allocations to the counties, there is much that the county assemblies can do. Look at the space. Today, Speaker Mbilu here, and those of you who have been there before, the entrenchment of CAF into law is 80% in. The financial independence of county assemblies, which has been a fight from 2013 to date, do not relent. Keep your eye on the ball. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Makofi kwa Dr. Kipkurui Chepkwony, the Chief Executive Officer, Intergovernmental Technical Relations Committee, together with his team member, Victor Odanga. In the interest of time, let me move very quickly and introduce the next panel, and also our presenter, and then they can take over from there together with our moderator. Na naomba munipigie makofi kwa wageni hawa nitakaowaalika sasa hivi. First and foremost, I'd like to invite on stage Ms. Caroline Gaita, the Executive Director, Mzalendo Trust, and CSOs, Open Government Partnership, in other words, OGP, co-convener. Just come and sit close by, and I'll give you the microphone immediately after. Our moderator for this session will be Ms. Sheila Masinde, the Executive Director, Transparency International. Karibu sana. We also have Commissioner Charles Dulo, the Chairperson of Commission on Administrative Justice. Karibu sana. Ms. Alice Guglev, I hope I got that right, CEO, Global Development Incubator Africa, Nurture First, one of also the main sponsors of today's event, as well as CPA Susan Mtana, the Associate Director, Policy and Partnerships, Kidogo Aliyers, also one of our partners today. Karibuni sana. Let me allow Ms. Gaita to take it over from here, do her presentation, and then thereafter, okay, great. Oh, Sheila wants to do. Sheila is my former colleague, by the way. Hi, sir. Tuifanye kiustarabu.
Kiustarabu, there has to be a system to this. The presenter needs to be introduced. Good morning, or is it good afternoon? Good afternoon, waheshimiwa, good afternoon. Thank you. Normally mkiwa huko nje tunawasikianga na sauti ya nguvu sana. Yeah, so but good afternoon everyone. Still, well, it's 3 minutes. 3 minutes too. And I think we're going to be executing most of this session in the afternoon, so let me greet you with that. But I wanted to just introduce the session so that we can just put it in context to the other issues that you're covering in this conference. So the fourth session is touching on open budget, open decisions, strengthening county oversight through open government partnership. And this session primarily aims to enhance understanding on the role of the open government partnership in strengthening county oversight and ensuring that budgetary and decision-making processes are transparent, they are inclusive and effective. And we aim to address the following. It's not going to be a very long session, but we hope that in this session, we will be able to understand the role of open government partnership in county oversight, how we can be able to sustain open government practices at the county level, and also adopting innovative tools, instruments, and approaches for open government. And all this, we hope, will lead to greater access to comprehensive, understandable, and timely information about government's budget and financial activities, enabling citizens and other stakeholders to participate in decision-making and hold the government accountable for the use of public resources. And to start us off towards this journey of understanding the OGP in strengthening county oversight, I'm happy to invite Ms. Caroline Gaita. As she has been introduced, she's the Executive Director of Mzalendo Trust and is also the co-convener for CSOs in the Open Government Partnership Kenya. Caroline is a governance specialist and has worked in various institutions, a former colleague of mine having led an initiative under Transparency International Kenya, that's the Shule Yangu Alliance. She's also worked for the Commission for the Implementation for the Constitution, the Society for International Development, among others. And where she works now, Mzalendo Trust, which as I said is our co-convener for OGP, Mzalendo Trust promotes open, inclusive, and accountable parliaments in Kenya and Africa, and is also promoting and monitoring legislative openness, among many other things. I want to give the opportunity for Caroline to come and speak, tell us about OGP, and more importantly, take us to that discussion around the open budgets. And after Caroline's presentation, you can see I have a very rich panel. We will be going back to the panelists for just a few minutes, 5 minutes each, to just give us their perspectives on open budgets, open decision-making, from the perspective of the institutions in which they serve and the mandates that they are currently undertaking in their institutions. So first, we hear from Caroline, and then we'll go to the panel, and we want to leave a little more time to go into the plenary and hear your own feedback and questions. Karibuni.
Tumpigie Sheila makofi tafadhali. Thank you so much, Sheila and Nimrod, for the introduction and the remarks. Allow me to stand on the established protocols and just go straight to my presentation. It's really a conversation that informs the panel discussion, as Sheila has said. So for those that have not interacted with the Mzalendo Trust, we are Kenya's premier parliamentary monitoring organization. We keep an eye on parliament at national and regional level, and to some extent at the subnational level, that's at the sub-county. But I'm here to speak about the Open Government Partnership, which is a global multi-stakeholder forum that brings together governments from across the world, civil society organizations, private sector, and academia to push to transform how government serves its citizens. It's an initiative that was launched in 2011 and which Kenya has been a member of. If you visit just OGP, you could get more details because I don't want to go into so much details. I want to focus more on the budget. In terms of Africa, quite a number of countries are members of OGP. As we speak now, about 9 of them, and we'll be hosting quite a number of them in the country next week. Kenya has been a member of the Open Government Partnership since 2011 and has developed 5 action plans to date, with the last one that was launched by the President in September last year. But the objective for today's discussion is really about the role county assemblies can play to advance openness, accountability, transparency, citizen participation, especially around budgets, and how the Open Government Partnership then facilitates this. As I've mentioned, OGP brings together 78 countries to the platform. But what is so important and relevant to this meeting is that there are about 150 local organizations. So for Kenya, these would be counties. And Kenya, we have 6 counties within the OGP. In other countries, it could be a state, say in Nigeria, it could be a municipal council, or it could be a state, you know. How local governments are organized in those different counties. And the goal is for government and civil society to work together to meaningfully engage with the needs of the public, combat elite capture, and form responsive governments that serve and empower their citizens for long-term exponential benefits. And for county assemblies, if you relate these to the objectives and principles of devolution, you then see how relevant it is to elements of oversight, public service delivery, proximate access to citizens, issues of public participation, and really giving a voice to citizens to be able to inform not only how they are governed, but where their resources should go. It also seeks to foster open, accessible, and responsive governments to their citizens that are beneficial and effective. So in terms of budget transparency, which is our point of discussion here today, they are really important to the system of devolved government. Why? Because they ensure responsible use of public resources, empower citizens to participate in decision-making. They lay the foundation for effective service delivery, again critical to the devolved function, and also give citizen voices. So for Kenya, informed by this provision in the Constitution, the current action plan, the 5th Open Government Partnership Action Plan, provides for a fiscal, transparency, legislative openness, and public participation cluster. Now, in developing that action plan, what are some of the things that we have seen around the state of county budget transparency? We have seen that counties have made tremendous progress. And in this regard, it's to relate to the County Budget Transparency Survey that says more counties are making information publicly available compared to previous years. But there are still some challenges in the sense that although budget information is shared, sometimes it doesn't have all the pertinent information. What are some of the areas of concern? There has been concern especially around supplementary budgets, and then county implementation reports, which frequently lack explanations for performance, making it difficult to assess financial accountability. And then, of course, there is a weak provision of non-financial information, such as the impact of budget allocations on service delivery. So is the money doing what it is supposed to do? So with this, what can county assemblies do? County assemblies, and aligned to the theme of the conference around oversight, county assemblies executives accountable. You review, in fact, in this case, I'll say you, because you review and approve government plans, policies, and budgets. You ensure they align with the needs of citizens. But there exist challenges, which I'm sure a lot of you can speak to. Part of it being, the plenary sessions might not always, and committees might not always represent full inputs from the citizens. Sometimes the information that is shared with you might not be timely and comprehensive. Sometimes details from the executive are withheld from you and other relevant agencies. So sometimes also, and one of the things that we have seen, and as Mzalendo Trust, we did release a report towards, in relation to this last year, on the eye on county assemblies, in terms of the role of county assemblies on oversight. There's also the financial independence of county assemblies on the executive. So if your money and your budgets are dependent on approval from the executive, sometimes pushing the button too hard might mean that your money is withheld. So how can you leverage open budgets to strengthen county oversight mechanisms? It's our belief that open budgets provide a pathway to enhance scrutiny and accountability at the county level. So by making program-based budgets publicly accessible, county assemblies can catalyze and analyze planned expenditures and track financial performance for the benefit of citizens. It can facilitate public participation. So what we are saying is when citizens have access to budget information, they can monitor public spending, they can engage meaningfully. And so as county assemblies, one of the things to then advocate for is simplified versions of official documents. Open budgets will also enable you as the oversight, as the members playing the oversight role, and citizens also, to identify discrepancies in spending and demand accountability from the leadership. So what are some of the provisions that OGP has provided for? One is a commitment on open data for development, which seeks to make financial resource management data available, readable, and easy for standards, for citizens to understand. The other one is open contracting. A lot of the counties, and allow me to mention and recognize Kakamega County, Nairobi County, Makueni County, Nandi County, Elgeyo Marakwet, and Machakos for being the counties that are members of the Open Government Partnership globally. Could you please clap for them? Because they are setting the standards. And allow me to also recognize that Nandi County is actually one of the counties that won an award during the OGP Summit in Estonia for the work that they are doing around citizen accessibility for information. So again, another clap for that. And there are lessons to be learned there as to how we leverage open government to facilitate information. So a lot of these 6 counties, and at the national level, one of the commitments they are pushing for is open contracting. This is to make sure that information on tenders and procurement is accessible. You're aware the country is developing an EGP system, the electronic government procurement system, that is part of the open government and is aimed at adopting open contracting data standards. I'm sure a number of the counties here, I think 13 counties are part of the pilot counties that will be adopting these policies. I've talked about public participation, legislative and fiscal openness, which is the reason we are here. And the other one is access to information. Citizens cannot engage fully if they don't have access to information on budgets. They can't engage if this information is not simplified, if it's not translated into manners that they can understand, if they cannot access it, in an inclusive manner. So whether it is in Braille, whether it's in sign language, and the things we need to know. So part of the things that we are pushing for under OGP is to make sure that access to information is entrenched. And one of the things that we've been pushing for through CAJ then is the adoption of model access to information laws, which I'm sure Commissioner will speak to in more details. So what can we learn so that the rest of it comes from the panel? Using OGP, we can enhance the availability and comprehensiveness of budget documents so that as the county assemblies, you can demand that counties, the executive, publishes all required budget documents in a timely manner so that yourselves and the citizens have adequate time to engage. The formats can be standardized and simplified. There's also building the capacity of county assemblies for budget analysis. And I'm aware that a number of our colleagues in the civil society and government as well have been leading training programs, especially for MCAs and assembly staff, to enhance their ability to analyze and interpret budgets. And we are also saying that county assemblies should be provided with access to technical experts and financial resources to support this oversight role. We are also advancing for and advocating for strengthening public participation mechanisms to make sure that public participation is not just tokenistic. We are not having the same people come into different meetings, give the same input over all public participation fora, and therefore it becomes just a tick the box. We are also saying that as part of these public participation processes, counties should consider disaggregating data and feedback mechanisms to ensure that citizen voice is input. So you have, it's not enough again to have a public participation forum. Who was in the room? Were their voices really heard? Or did they just come in and tick the form, sign the form, and leave? And we don't know whether there were women in the room. We don't know whether there were young people in the room. We don't know whether there were persons with disability in the room. And we also don't know the geographic representation of the people that were in the room. We are also encouraging collaboration and information sharing between county assemblies, the Senate, the Controller of Budget, and the Commission on Revenue Allocation, and perhaps now also with the Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee based on the presentation just made. And then lastly is to institutionalize open budget practices, which means standardizing, integrating this, and also ensuring that there's monitoring and evaluation. So in conclusion is to say that open budgets are fundamental to ensuring that county assemblies can play their oversight role effectively, and to then say that as a platform that brings together all stakeholders, both at the national level and at county level, and also provides a mechanism for engagement between the national government and the counties, open government then can facilitate these open budgets, and strong county assemblies ultimately lead to better service delivery, reduced corruption, and enhanced public trust. So devolution exists for the people. County assemblies are the most closest to the people. You understand people's needs. And using open budgets and using OGP, you can really speak to and address the needs of the citizens at the lowest level of governance and make sure that these then are cascaded and brought forward. So our call to action this morning is, as you discuss and deliberate on your oversight role and how to enhance legislative openness, is to also consider adopting open budgets, open governments, to enhance citizen delivery, but also most importantly, to rebuild the trust between yourselves as the representatives of the people and the people that you represent. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Another clap for Caroline, please. Thank you, Caroline. You've given us an overview of the Open Government Partnership and its principles. You've told us about the current state of of county budget transparency and some of the progress and some of the challenges that are still experienced. And we hope that we can be able to address them through the panel discussion. And also, more importantly, highlighted the role of county assemblies and their role in budget oversight and how they can even help us promote public participation and openness in county budgets. And we've also shared how we can leverage on some of the open government partnership commitments. I think primarily you talked about open contracting, that's commitment 5. You talked about, I had public participation, legislative and fiscal openness, that's commitment 6. And then commitment 7 on access to information. How do we use this to even enhance that principle of open budgets even further? And then you've left us with very strong recommendations for strengthening county oversight through open budgets. I would want to go into the details because I think you really highlighted them in depth. At this point, I want us to dive into the panel discussion. And I'm going to invite each panelist to speak from where they are, because we want to make it a bit less formal, more interactive, so that we can also have a conversation with the participants, with our Heshimiwas here. And I'll start by inviting Commissioner Chairperson of the Commission on Administrative Justice, that's the Ombudsman, and that's Charles Dulo. He's an accomplished legal advocate with over 20 years of experience in the legal field and has also had extensive experience teaching law. The Commission on Administrative Justice that's the Office of the Ombudsman, is a constitutional commission. Its mandate extends to both the national and county governments. One of its mandates is to tackle maladministration in the public sector, and the second mandate is to oversee and enforce the implementation of the Access to Information Act. The Commission, I think it's important to note, because we're talking about the Open Government Partnership, is also the Deputy Chair of the OGP National Steering Committee, am I right? Yeah. And is also the lead, particularly of the Access to Information Cluster, which Caroline just took us through some of the commitments. So the Commission chairs or leads one of the commitments on that is one on access to information. So Chair, we invite you to take the next 5 to 7 minutes to just speak about the work and your mandate as the Commission on Administrative Justice and how your work helps us to enhance open budget and open decisions, but basically also an opportunity for you to feedback into the presentation that Caroline has shared. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to start by thanking the organizers and the presenters for the job well done. I'm glad to be here and all protocols observed. I just want to react to what Sheila has said. As you know, that all the things that she's talked about in terms of commitment that the government has made, primarily all of them rests on access to information. Because without information, you're not able to make any decision. And even the information, we need to look at what is the quality of information that we are giving. Our mandate, of course, is both constitutional. The CAG is a Chapter 15 constitutional commission, and therefore it's an independent commission that is providing oversight to both national and county government. Primarily, our mandate is on checking on the maladministration, both at national and county government level. We also enforce the access to information. When the citizens come to us and say that we want this information and nobody is giving it to them, so we normally write to the concerned body and asking them to give that information. That information is only subject to Section 6 of our Act, which gives the exemptions to what kind of information should be provided. That section is basically to protect certain information, like to respect the Data Protection Act also, it also deals with the issues of national security and et cetera, trade secrets and things like that. So there's certain information that will not be shared in public. But coming back to our topic today, in terms of open governance and access to information to facilitate budgeting process, we need to look at what is the information that is out there that we are giving the populace to make informed decision. For example, public participation is not just affording people the opportunity to come and tick the box that they have participated, but do we give them the information about what projects they can develop or what projects can be implemented right from the ward level until you come to the sub-county level, how the resources are going to be allocated. And this should be shared well in advance, not necessarily just the time when you're going to do the public participation. I know sometimes we put these things in the newspaper and we hope that people will have read them. Unfortunately, where I sit, most of us don't like reading. They allow some people to read for them, then they say, nani ametusomea, sasa tunajua hiyo ni mzuri. But then we need also to have this information available in a language that the people can understand. I want to applaud the last budget. That was the most, what we call it? It's a time when we had a lot of public participation regarding the budgetary process. And it's because that the famous Gen Zs were translating the budget into the various languages, vernacular. They were using social media to reach very many people. But then we also need to be very careful because on how we use social media, because again, disinformation can come in. And that is why we want to have accurate information being given to the people and to be able to do that. So as we going forward on this, the couple of 2 weeks back, we have visited most of the counties and the county assemblies. I met with quite a number of speakers. We had an engagement in Siaya, Kisumu, Homa Bay, Kisii, Nyamira, Nakuru, Murang'a, Nyeri, and Isiolo. One of the things that we were doing in engaging the counties is that under the County Government Act, Section 96(3) requires you to have what we call Access to Information Act, which is domesticated to the specific counties. We have the National Access to Information Act, 2016, but then we want now to cascade it down to the county level so that the counties also have their own act, which is customized to the local needs of their counties. So during that period, we're engaging them in one grievance resolution mechanisms and also Access to Information Act. And this was done under FLOCA because if you look at one of the open governance things that we're talking about, climate is one of the areas that they're dealing with. And so when we came down, one of the things we are trying to do is to enable the people of those counties to access certain information relating to the projects that are being run by the counties and under FLOCA, but also to generally have access to information by the counties themselves and things like that. The other thing is that because you're doing an oversight law, we have a lot of collaborations that we can do in terms of training the county assemblies to strengthen your oversight mandate. We can also collaborate because there are certain things that when they are reported to us, you are better placed to deal with, because things like non-remittance of statutory deductions, even though they are budgeted for and it is provided for, some county executives don't remit those things to whether SHA, whether to pension, or any of those organizations. And so sometimes people come to complain to us, some of the things we can send to the county assemblies to be able to oversight on our behalf and things like that. So transparency and accountability helps institutions to build trust. So when you are starting with the budgeting process, and you put out everything out there and people participate in it, and then people must also know that in the event that I don't get this information, how can I complain? And when I complain, how can my complaint be addressed to their satisfaction? So all these things will lead to open budgeting and open governance. In fact, one of the other areas that we want also to see a lot of information coming in is when you do like open contracting. When a contractor has been given the job, people will know what is happening, what is expected of them, including the BQ. And they are the ones who will be able to supervise to ensure that the contractor delivers. Apart from the technical people that will be doing that, the people will say, oh, this bridge is not done as per the specification. The road is too narrow. This is not what was provided in the BQ. So it helps the people to make both the contractors and the other people involved to be accountable. Because remember, this money was budgeted for, and so they knew exactly how much was provided for that road, whether it was going to be adequate, and whether the contractor is delivering. So with that, I would like to stop here. Unless there are any questions, I'll be willing to take. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chair Dulo. You've given us in fact, cited some very practical experiences and situations where we need information, particularly on the ground at the grassroots level, and even linking it to issues around open contracting. I think that's very, very important. I think what we also take importantly, as you've talked about the importance of access to information, you've also emphasized the point around the quality of the information. There is information for the sake of giving that information, putting it out in the public, but is it quality? Does it enable members of the public to meaningfully engage? Because from your discussion, what we can take is that access to information is a key prerequisite for public participation, which of course we know is entrenched in our constitution. I'd like to move to the next panelist, and I want to take the opportunity to just introduce her. Her name is Alex Guglev. She's the CEO of the Global Development Incubator, Africa, Nurture First, and she's the Managing Director and CEO of GDI Africa, and has been working in Kenya for the last 8 years. And she works with corporations, commercial investors, INGOs to integrate social impact, innovation, and social entrepreneurship efforts into their portfolios. And GDI Africa is a non-profit organization registered here in Kenya as an NGO with a strong commitment to driving transformational change in the region, and has served as an incubator for groundbreaking social impact initiatives dedicated to nurturing and expanding the next wave of socially impactful solutions. So Alice will tell us how we can perhaps use the principle of OGP and open budgets to even perhaps have more impactful solutions for the local communities. And here we have the representatives of our local communities, also the members of the county assemblies. So I think we have a good audience to be able to discuss this. So Alice, if you can take 5 minutes and just tell us your perspectives in relation to also what Caroline has shared.
Great, thank you so much. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. People are still kind of recovering from the delayed start, waiting for lunch. I'll tell you, my 2 children are visiting me from school this week. And I've said I can't spend time with you. I have to go to this legislative summit. So I'm very excited to be here and see you all today. Thank you so much for making space for partners to come and engage with government. This is very important. We see ourselves as government in the lead and us as partners supporting government as much as possible to make you as effective as you can be. So again, government's always in the lead in how we approach things. So again, my name is Alice Guglev. I spent most of my career actually in Asia, in Singapore, China, Hong Kong, Japan, Korea, India, Thailand. and I've seen how those countries have developed. Most of my time I've also spent in private sector, capital markets, project finance, private equity. Everything I've done in the private sector has also been in deep partnership with those Asian governments. It's been very interesting. A lot of times people see the success story of the economic growth and efficiency of how Asia has moved forward over the last 60 years compared to some of the countries in Latin America and Africa. And it truly is a success story in Asia for most macroeconomic variables: GDP growth, GDP per capita, efficient public service delivery, recognition and gathering of taxes from their populations, many interesting case studies coming out. And what I've seen is a deep partnership between private sector and government, as well as civil society in all of those areas. So as I reflect on the last 8 years in Kenya, working at both national government and county level, some of the programs that we looked at are poverty alleviation, working with the national government Ministry of Social Protection and Labor. We've worked on early childhood development, deep at the county level, especially after devolution, with an exciting program called Nurture First, looking at caregivers at the home and how to improve their capacity and capabilities. We've looked at mental health issues. We've looked at economic growth. So many different initiatives focused on employment, livelihood, and youth employment in particular. And what I'll share with you this afternoon is maybe 3 areas that I'm really focused on with everything I've learned so far. Number 1, which is very much focused on economic development and growth. And sometimes at the county level, you think that, especially for MCAs and others, maybe this is not part of your mandate. But I will challenge all of you to think about economic growth in your counties. Why? We are in such budget-constrained environment right now in Kenya. We're in deep debt. And now USAID is gone, right? What do we need to do? We actually need to grow the pie. We need to have significant economic development. Nationally, the Kenyan GDP is just over 100 billion US dollars. This is not acceptable. It should be 4 times that, at least. And this is not just it's the responsibility of county level government, including hyper-local ward level development, including legislative policies that you're all looking at. So what are some of the things that you can do at the county level to support this growth? I'll give you several institutional structures that we're setting up across the country. One, at the county level, something called the Economic Development and Investment Council, where people are coming together and thinking about, in your particular county, what are the assets, whether they're potential future tourism assets. We have now mapped out tourist assets across the country. We were just in Murang'a last week looking at what are all the rural opportunities. We were in Nakuru, we were in Mombasa, we were in Kisumu, Makueni, et cetera, looking at what are all the local assets to drive tourism in those locations. So these economic development and investment councils are looking at value chains. Are we talking about coconut? Are we talking about sisal? Are we talking about avocados? All of these can be nurtured and supported at the county level. The idea is very much, how do you drive local economic development and critically absorb local labor? People are unhappy. Why? They don't have jobs. They don't have livelihoods. How do we make sure that they have the economic wherewithal to not only support their households, but also critically contribute to taxes? Because where are those taxes going to come from? And so local economic development, there's actually a lot that you can do for your own counties. So I would ask these questions as MCAs, as legislative assemblies, of your executives, and provide suggestions as to where this economic growth can come from locally. What are your local assets, and what are those development plans? In each of the county integrated development plans, there's a huge focus on economic growth and development. That means it's part of all of your jobs to make sure that that happens. And so how do you really deliver on that promise? The second area that I'm really focused on, this is revenue recognition at the county level. How do you not only get the budgets from national government to your counties, but also how do you think about all the different diverse sources of revenue for your counties? There's been interesting innovations leveraging future receivables from, let's say, national government transfers or other tax revenues. Pension funds and SACCOs have been financing some of that for local counties. I think many of you might know what I'm talking about. So really recognizing the revenue so that you can have the budgets at a local basis to be able to do this. There's also diverse ways of thinking about revenue recognition. This is not just in Kenya, but all over the world, government officials at a subnational level are becoming financing experts, not just legislative experts. How do you maximize resources at the county level? Then you will have the money to do a lot of the programs that you're hoping to do. There's very creative ways of doing this as well. Private sector investors might come in if a county says, we will dedicate land, we will provide capital expenditures. Private sector comes in and they support with operating expenditures. A lot more private-public partnerships can be done at the county subnational level. What are investors interested in? And this is very critical for open data partnership and transparency. Investors, donors, catalytic impact investors, they all want data. Transparent, and as the gentleman was just saying, very good data. Investors and donors want information. And if that's shared with them, a lot more money can flow in. The third area I'll talk about is public service delivery. Especially in light of USAID and other donor pullouts, we will have less and less funding coming from European bilaterals as well. A huge amount of the public service delivery that was delivered in the past by nonprofit organizations will have to be delivered by government. I actually think this is a good thing. It's better to be sovereign and grow through trade, economic growth, and not aid. But that also means that public service delivery has to be, as mentioned, efficient, transparent, effective. And so what we've been really focused on is how do we set up different fund structures and other institutional structures to make this happen. For example, we're creating county-level outcomes funds. Outcomes funds means you pay when the service is effectively delivered. We keep talking about how we don't know if the service that government has delivered is effective or not. Has it reached its people? Has it actually resulted in the impact that you wanted it to result in? This is creating ways that money is paid for only when those impacts are reached. This requires the assembly to approve this, the county level assembly to approve this. That's all of you, right? So how do you think about having programs that are paying for actual results? There are several county level funds, and I'll highlight one in Mombasa that we've been working on called the Elimu Fund. This fund already exists. The structure already exists. And it's basically putting the money into escrow or into a ring-fenced fund that's released only when certain impacts are achieved. That again requires county level assembly approvals. This also allows for the money to be there for the programs and for it to be paid when the results are there. This is critical around data and institution building. In the interest of time, I'll end on one last one, which is highlighting a real story that in 2017, I was sitting at a lunch with many young people and the executives of a county that I will not name at the moment, and a number of MCAs from that county. And what resulted was actually a shouting match between the young people in the room and the county executives, where the young people were saying, "You're not delivering on the services that we want." And it was very, very difficult situation. We've seen now with Gen Zs do it at a national level. And so I'll give you an example of what has worked. What the young people don't like is one-day national participations, and to be made to feel that they don't understand difficult legislative language. They just need to have their capacity built as to what the content of the legislation is, and it takes time to build that capacity. And critically, they need to be involved in the budget-making process. Not just, here's the budget is ready, do you have any input? And so what has happened in one of the counties that we're working in is that the youth themselves are now part of the development of the County Integrated Development Plan and Budget. They're involved every year in the annual development plans. They're sitting at the table to go back and forth, pros and cons around what the budget looks like and what the policies look like. And you know what's very interesting that's happened? Rather than them saying, you government, we youth, it's transformed to us together. It's a completely different narrative. And so they themselves feel accountability. They themselves understand what the constraints are that government has. And so this is an interesting moment in time where we can create the institutions, we can create the transparency and the accountability to bring in civil society, young people, private sector, to be partners in this next journey for Kenya. And maybe it's not just we could or we have this opportunity,
as you wind up, Alice,
but that we must. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I think we'll have more occasion to talk a bit about how we can enhance public participation. I like the example that you've given in terms of encouraging and meaningful participation, especially of young people. We know how active they are now. I like what you have said about what you're doing in terms of economic development and growth at the county level, the economic councils, looking at the value chains, driving local development, and just even starting to think about counties' diverse sources of revenue and what county assemblies need to do to drive these processes and what is their role, particularly in this process. And of course, that last vignette on public participation and especially engagement of the youth. Thank you very much, Alice. I now want to go to our last panelist before we come to the plenary. And we will be hearing from CPA, Susan Mutana. She's the Associate Director, Policy and Partnerships of Kidogo Early Years, which aims to improve access to quality, affordable early childhood care and education in East Africa's low-income communities. Perhaps, Susan, you will also give us more practical examples. You're dealing with early childhood education, and just to see how this concept of open budgets, open participation, decision-making is working in the early childhood education sector as well. In 5 minutes, please.
Okay, thank you. All protocols observed. I'll be brief. So kidogo is, we say, chanzo cha makubwa ni kidogo. And in terms of the little statistics that we have, is that 23% of the Kenyan population is for children aged 0 to 8, what we know as ECD. And 10% of the children, there is around 4.75 million children, are aged between 0 to 3 years. That is based on KNBS data 2023. So our focus as Kidogo is the child who is below 4 years, because we know the school-going age is 4 years. And mostly when we come to the counties, we talk about childcare. The response we get is, Susan, we already have ECD. We have infrastructural development about ECD. But in this case, we are talking about early childhood development or childcare for the 0 to 3. We know like after 3 months, a working woman, mostly in the urban informal settlements, we want to go back to work, and not everyone can afford a nanny. So in that case, they'll have an option to leave the child in an informal baby care center, and maybe some of them, they just work on manual jobs. So kidogo, we come in, we map the women who run the child care centers, mostly the untrained. We map them, we train them, and in terms of our program is aligned to the nurturing care framework in terms of opportunities for early learning, play-based, and issues about stimulating the child, ensuring the space is safe, health, nutrition, and wash, and also business administration, because we want them to run thriving business. And these women are found in homes. For example, in Nairobi, you go to Pipeline, you'll find in one of the houses, a woman runs a home-based daycare center whereby they receive children and take care of them. In other cases, somebody rents a space whereby they pay rent and receive children from maybe 6 a.m. up to 6 p.m. And in other cases, you find a daycare attached to a private school. So those are the target markets that we deal with. And we find a lot of children are left here. And if we say 90% of brain development takes place at the age, below age 5, then it means these are critical gaps that we need to invest in. When you look at the regulatory framework, childcare is devolved. And different counties are at different stages in terms of regulatory framework and policies. Like you ask, what are the minimum quality standards for these daycares? You find it may not cut across a home-based center. You ask, is the home-based center maybe a business? Or the fact that they're receiving the children in their homes, they're not a business. And when we talk about child protection, have you considered the daycare centers whereby they receive these children? So you find we have the national policies and also the county policies, but at the same time, what we have learned in our experience of 10 years as Kidogo, because we are in 12 counties, is that mostly it's confused with early childhood development and education. So the focus has been on the child who is 4 years and above, as opposed to the child who is between 0 to 3 years. It is in these centers whereby these children who have lost track of immunizations, the CHPs will get into them, we do the malnutrition tracking. So it's a segment that I would urge us to focus on in terms of if we are doing budgeting from a planning perspective. And the other bit is look at your budgets, is there aligned for childcare? Beyond the ECD classroom. Let's not wait for the child to be to get free primary education or bursaries. How about the early years that matter most? And one thing we know is that there's the multi-sectoral coordination whereby the child will fall under the Ministry of Education or County Department of Education. The child will still fall under the Ministry of Health because they still need to be immunized and the follow-up. The child will still follow under the social protection. So you go to one county, as Kidogo, you want to sign an MOU, the question is which department? Health will tell you that we are doing a lot of the work to bring this child to reach 4 years. Education will be like, we are waiting for this child to reach 4 years to take them to school. So where is childcare domiciled in terms of the policies and all that? So what we are requesting for as Kidogo, and that's why we're here in this forum, is to, if there is support for simpler and fairer regulations, to include also the home-based childcare providers. Because we know some of us have the Child Care Facilities Act, either regulations, maybe in draft, others being implemented. The licensing is not, let's just say, if you sample out, different counties have different ways. Others have done more progress, others are still lagging behind. And also, I want us to look at it from a women economic empowerment initiative, whereby if the child is well taken care of, they'll reach their milestone. The woman, the parent, will manage also to do what? To go to work and have peace of mind. We are looking at having childcare financing through the ADPs. We've Now we've started mobilizing women to do civic engagement with like in Coast, we've done it in Kilifi and Mombasa counties in collaboration with the Coast Regional Budget Hub, just training them on civic engagement and now bringing memorandums about childcare to the counties so that we can get an allocation for the child with 0 to 3 years. Also, as an ecosystem, we are working with the NITA. We want to professionalize the industry so that the way somebody can go to a vocational training college to learn carpentry, they can learn caregiving, and also now we can come back to you and say, can you professionalize this industry and earn revenue from it? So all we need is supportive supervision, the allocation of funding, and the multi-sectoral coordination, both at national and county levels. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Susan. And I think the question, I could hear the plea, where is childcare domiciled in the county government functions? Maybe we'll get an answer here now that we have the waheshimiwas. But another clap for the panel, please. Thank you. They've done a good job in terms of just taking us deep into the discussion, and we want to go into plenary. Maybe Nimrod, how many minutes do we have for plenary? Pardon? 10? Okay, it says 15 minutes so that we can give you time to go for lunch, and someone maybe can assist with the moving of the mic. Maybe we can, there are 3, we can take the first 5, maybe 5 questions. We have been told I only have 15 minutes. Let's start with 5. I think there was the gentleman here, and then there are 2 ladies on this column. Those are 3. Let's start with the 3, and then we can come back. Please, if it's a question, please indicate who you're directing the question to, who in the panel you're directing the question to. Thank you. I think the mic, is that mic working?
Hi, thank you. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I have 2 concerns. The last concern will go to Commissioner, and the first one should be addressed by Ms. Caroline.
Tell us your name.
My name is Lillian Gore. I serve in the County Assembly of Kisii. I'm extremely privileged to be here. My first concern was on while she was giving her brief remarks, opening remarks about this session, there was a concern about the composition of the public participation fora. And she even alluded to the fact that maybe these members are the same members continuously, probably for different documents relating to the budget, but same members. I totally agree with you that if composition is different, it would be okay. But isn't there a need for more enhancement of civic education to the people in the grassroots? Because the county governments have the responsibility of making sure that these documents are availed to the population. And from our experience, we have this expectation that once we have publicized the document, it is in the National Gazette, then the members of the public should avail themselves in that public spaces. And to be honest, the numbers are usually very, very low. Is there a way that the institutions represented here can do civic education, especially when we look forward to these budget documents being publicized by the respective county governments, so that the members of the public see the need of availing themselves in those public forums to avail the information that they have, so that then it translates to a document that they will appreciate and accept once it is rolled out in terms of law. The second question is to Commissioner. I just want to understand, the law says that public participation, availing documents and information is a responsibility of all public institutions. We get it rightly. But when it comes to budget documents, in whose docket does it fall? Is it the responsibility of the county assemblies to make sure that CIDP, for example, is exhaustively availed and discussed by the public? Is it the responsibility of the county assemblies, for example, to engage with those documents before the county assemblies come to pass them? It's a little bit of a fluid area because the budget committees within the assembly also participate, but at the same time, you're supposed to come back and oversight on this document. So whose docket is this? Thank you.
Thank you very much. There was there's someone else there on that column. There was a lady. Okay. Please, then we'll go back to the lady on that column. She had put her hand up first. But we can hear from the gentleman.
Thank you very much. I'm Edukon Stephen, MCF from Turkana. I have a simple question, not even a question, but it will eventually become a question that will demand a reasonable comment. We have the County Integrated Development Plan for counties. And governments cannot fully finance programs. It is the partners that normally maybe bridge the gap. For that matter, I have a question for Alice, who has traveled quite a lot, and I wanted to inquire. Now that you have a partnership with the Kenyan governments, and maybe for various institutions, how do you manage inconveniences caused by other governments, like when these other governments give executive orders? I hope you understand that. Because when you inconvenience partners, let's say you have engaged some Kenyans in some organizations, and then you have these executive orders, then all of a sudden people are rendered jobless. How do you manage that kind of arrangement as a great partner? And then the other one goes to CPA. A great presentation. I want to thank you for that. But I'm surprised you want to know where the Kidogo program is domiciled. First of all, before you engage the government or you partner with government entities, you need to understand which entity would you fit to work with. So I don't understand that, because the education department, the ECD, that is the mandate of the counties. So that is where the program you have been explaining is domiciled. And so you don't need even to ask so much of that, because when you are giving 0 to 3 years, for us as counties, we look at it from 0 to any other age, as long as they are able to benefit from those early childhood programs or the protection aspect. So I think you need also to extend your coverage to other counties. You know, the way you are presenting, you are only presenting an urban kind of narrative. So Kidogo, you need to expand your coverage so that you become a bit relevant. Otherwise, thank you for that presentation.
Thank you very much, Honorable Edipo. I think we've noted down the questions and the comments. There was a lady, excuse me, the lady with the mic. There's a lady there. And then we come to this column. Please keep your interventions brief so that we can be able to hear from the other members wanting to also contribute.
Good afternoon, and thank you for this opportunity. The gentleman from Turkana has carved a little out of what I wanted to contribute to. First of all, I want to appreciate the engagement that Kidogo, my name is Lily Kidenda. I am from Nairobi City County Assembly, and I sit in both the Education Committee and I am Vice Chair Health Committee. I'd like to add that the early childhood space that you are specializing in falls both in education and also in health. During that time of growth, if you don't partner in those two areas, you do not get the maximum benefit that the child can get. I have had engagements with you. We've had this discussion. The regulations are in place, particularly in Nairobi County Assembly, and I am excited to continue working with you. And it's critical never to split health and education in that age particularly, but of course across the board. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Kidenda. We come to this column.
Thank you. My name is Situma Emmanuel, Speaker, Bungoma County Assembly. My question goes to Commissioner Charles Dulo, the chairperson of the Commission on Administrative Justice. My question is specifically on public participation. Public participation has become way of life in this country in all the legislation we are doing. But from the presentation of the CRA, they have capped funding to public participation in counties at maximum 5 documents concerning budget preparation and approvals. Now the question here is, what happens to other core legislations that are supposed to be undertaken by the county assemblies across the 47 county assembly? And equally, even the funding. Some of the county assemblies in this country are like constituencies in other parts of the country, and the funding is across the board. So in such situations in areas where there's no provision of public participation, and the Honorable MCS are supposed to do the legislation, and there's no public participation, is that not being micromanaging the assemblies in their core mandate of legislation? Then secondly, on the issue of allocation of resources by the CRA to the training of the county assemblies for their major work of oversight, I've seen a very funny behavior in this country. When the senators are taken to Mombasa for continuous training or honorable MPs, it's very right. But the MC, they are saying they only train for the first 2 years for their capacity building. So where is the problem? If an MC has been trained for 2 years in the assembly, he goes to the senator, he becomes the senator, he's taken for 5 years. Can we have some equality in this training of the honorable MCS? As lawyers, Commissioner of the due respect, we keep on going for the continuous legal training as lawyers. Equally with the CPA, madam, here you also go for your trainings, and even HR professionals. But when it comes here to the honorable MCS here, they are told you only go to class for the first 2 years. Then the milk is closed to wait for the next session. So we want to have fairness in this allocation of training of the honorable MCS. Thank you.
We'll take the last question from here, and then we come back to the panel.
Thank you very much, the panelists. My name is Honorable Stephen. I am from Kajiado County Assembly, serving as the majority whip in the Assembly. My concern is on public participation, and this goes to the Commissioner. The law is not very clear on the threshold of public participation. And I think there is a legislative amendment that is going on because what the other panelists talked about, the same people coming for public participation, same audience, and that demeans the value of public participation in entrenching democracy in our country. And looking at the law on public participation is very explicit on issues to do with making sure that the public has an opportunity for their decisions and their voices to be heard, and even prioritizing the projects and issues to do with the infrastructural and service delivery to the normal mwananchi. So we need to know, Commissioner, where we are in terms of repealing the law and amending the law to make sure that there is proper threshold. And also sensitization to the public on issues and matters to do with public participation so that we don't keep on repeating and engaging the same audience every time. And I think that will go a long way in making a full realization of what really public participation is all about. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Stephen. I think I've not been fair to that side. I didn't see any hand, but I want to just assure them that as much as we look very far from them, we are engaging with them. I just want to check that whether there was anyone with an interest to ask a question. We can give one person from that corner. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm Honorable Tarus John, MCA Sacho. First of all, my question goes to Alice Kukelev. You talked about economic growth. And I want to believe the only way to ensure that we remove the problem of poverty is through the economic growth. But the major problem is that access to information, especially from the Kenya National Bureau of Standards. Because for you to plan on how to grow economically, you must have the right data and the most recent information. But when you Google or you go to their website, you will get the only information that you get is about the poverty index, population, way back to 2009. But 2019 upwards is not available. So maybe my question is, how do we get that information in our assembly so that we can be able to plan? And the other thing is that you also need to shed more light on the key areas which can be, or the key things that can be done so that we can have economic growth in our wards, and especially in the far-flung counties. Because I come from a far-flung county, that is Baringo, which we need to get that information well. Thank you.
Much as the panelists prepare their responses, I'll ask them to respond. Each person just 2 minutes as you also give your closing remarks. There was a hand here. I think I will, there's a, yeah. Huyu ni MC wangu, nataka aongee. Speaker rather, sorry, speaker.
Thank you. My name is Dr. Nyanumba, Speaker Kisii. I think my sentiment has been mentioned by my colleague there, but more importantly, it was went to the CIJ. He had talked about the Access to Information Act. I want him to shed more light about this Access to Information Act, which they are working on. This is about to be, I mean, every county in the country does need to have that Access to Information Act. It's important that you shed more light on that so that we know, because you have said that you are on the process of working over the draft of the same so that the counties can know, so that we start preparing about it. Again, you have talked about the oversight law you are praying. And of course we know in the county assemblies, we pray, most of our work it is about the oversight. And you have said that you need the county assemblies to assist in your oversight. It is good that you shed more light of which kind of oversight you are praying to the country and to the counties, and the other oversight we do as the assembly so that we see how we can interconnect. I mean, we should know that if we are assisting you, at which point do we meet as counties so that we can be able to assist one another in that kind of oversight. Thank you.
Very much for all the questions and the comments. I'll throw it back to the panel. I hope you have noted some of the questions that were addressed to you, particularly the ones touching on the open budget and public participation, access to information. If we can prioritize those as we also give your closing points for this session. Can we start with Alice and then come down? 2 minutes or less, please.
Thank you. And thank you so much for the questions. I'll be brief. To the Honorable MCA from Turkana, yes, it's a very difficult time when you are dependent on other governments and aid. And so all of my remarks today, and even my work over the last 8 years here, has been to reduce this dependency as much as possible. And so what I would say, this joblessness is being manufactured by the wills and changes of other foreign leaders, and this is not the way that we would recommend moving forward. That the way to really move forward is to have sovereignty, to have local economic growth and development. And so for the strategies I had outlined today, happy to go into more detail and brainstorm with any of the MCAs or counties here to talk about what those strategies could be for local economic growth. And that connects to the honorable question, the man from Baringo County as well. I very much feel your KNBS lack of data. I've talked to KNBS, we've reached out to them many times. This is an official forum. I'll just say that we don't rely on KNBS data. We've tried to get it, but it's not valuable for investors or partners, unfortunately, at the moment. Neither 2009 nor the latest census for 2019. I can't even get labor force participation since 2019 for young people or women. So let alone disaggregated county level data is not even available. So from whoever's working on data and availability, if there's support for KNBS to address these issues, would be very much appreciated. But very practically speaking, and this is maybe my parting shot, which is that for all of you to really put in the hard work to understand in Baringo County specifically, in Turkana specifically, what are the local assets? What are the partners that are still on the ground that are not international aid agencies? What are the value chains that you can grow? What are the local livelihood opportunities? This research has actually already been done by many other partners that are not KNBS. It's available publicly online. And so as MCAs and at the County Assembly and as part of your CIDP and ADPs in process, to really prioritize those 2 or 3 high growth economic areas that you will focus on at the county level. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The question of, the issue of public participation is recurring, and I'd like to answer it this way. The CAJ is mandated to do what we call public advocacy. And we intend to start this by having town hall meetings where we are going to sensitize various people about what it is that needs to be done. Part of our program as going forward is that we'll be also having what we call circuit hearings within the various counties. And so when we do that, we'll be conducting hearings during the day, and in the evening engage with the locals and on town hall meetings where we'll be doing public advocacy and training them in terms of the threshold for public participation, because I think there's need for training on sensitization of the members of the public, and especially in this process of budgeting, so that we do not have just the same people participating every other time, as has been noted. Now, the issue of who avails this information, budgeting is both an executive and a legislative function. So the executive in the counties are supposed to provide the budgetary data and information as well, so that the county assemblies, and when they're doing their, through their committees, they are also able to ensure that the information was availed to the members of the public. I want to agree with my friend from Bungoma, Situma. First of all, I have to declare my interest. They just won an award, which we gave them the other day, so I've met and engaged with them. And even, yeah, thank you. So I think everybody needs to be capacity built in terms of to do their work effectively. One of our mandates as the Commission is to mediate between government bodies when there is a stalemate like this. So we are opening our offices to the members of the County Assembly and CRA to be able to engage on that matter, because putting a cap on the number of meetings for public participation will hamper the legislative processes for others, because you see, as we speak, we are talking of access to information that is also going to be requiring public participation. The grievance redress mechanism policies, those are also going to require public participation. So that is one area that we can take up with the CRA to see how the funding for public participation to the county assemblies can be increased because of the legislative role that they are playing. I agree with you, it is discrimination. If we take senators and MPs for training and for MCAs, we say you only need to be trained the first time. So again, those are areas we are willing to open our doors to engage and deal with that issue. On the question by Stephen, well, the law on public participation, by the way, you're supposed to make county-specific legislation. So if you feel that your county, this is unique and you want to have it, so be it, just have it. The other threshold would be given by, courts, like we're waiting to see what the court is going to decide on public participation in terms of impeachment of the deputy president that is still in court. So once the outcome comes, we'll be able to see the threshold that they have said, because even the county assemblies also are engaged in a very good role of impeaching people, and so they should also be aware of what is expected of them in terms of public participation.
If you can wind up, Chair, please.
Yes. The Speaker of Kisii, County Assembly Government Acts, County Government Act, Section 96.3 requires you to have access to information act. We have a model and we are working with you. We met you when we came to Kisii so that you are able to have access to information act, and we're going to do it with all the other counties because there are certain specific things that are specific to the counties that we're going to do that. I think I want to stop there unless there's any question I missed.
No, well answered, Chair. Thank you for the detailed responses. We go to Caroline, your parting shot, please.
Okay, I'll keep it short, but allow me to, in response to Honorable Goal, so in terms of civic education, I think this is something especially civil society organizations have been undertaking. You are aware that this is at the core of the work we do at Mzalendo Trust, facilitating public participation across different legislations. But on the question of public participation, including the threshold, allow me to chip in. Within the OGP framework, this is one of the areas that we've been really pushing for. And one of the things that from the third action plan was the public participation law at national level. We are aware that some counties have county-specific public participation laws, but we're interested in having this law that would now provide the framework. And the Senate did pass a law on public participation. Unfortunately, it didn't pass through the National Assembly during the 12th Parliament. Now, there has been efforts to make sure that this law is developed. The Office of the Attorney General last year published, in fact, I think it was one of the few laws that I've also seen published in Kiswahili. They did publish, following wide consultations, they did publish a public participation bill that was open for public participation, and this was in response also to different bills that had been tabled at the National Assembly. So we hope that this year that will be passed. As a parting shot, I think I would go back to something Alice talked about, just to again emphasize how county assemblies can use OGP. She talked about rebuilding trust and gave the example of the county that moved from us versus them to we. And that really is at the heart of open government. That's let's co-create, let's collaborate, let's share information, and let's put citizens at the center of the work we do as county assemblies, as members of county assemblies, guided also by the objectives of devolution, especially around enhancing participation, providing proximate, easily accessible services, and most importantly also as legislators, providing checks and balances that facilitate democratic and accountable governments. I'm quoting this from the Constitution, so this is not a Caroline thing. To say members of county assemblies, the role of oversight is really pertinent to the existence of our governance structures. Please play it. And we on this side of civil society are here to support you, to build capacity, and to provide resources, whether this could be technical, not necessarily financial, but in whichever way possible, we are willing to work together. Thank you for giving us audience, and we look forward to further engagements. Asante.
Last but not least, Susan.
Okay, thank you. So to Mheshimiwa from Turkana, tulifika Kakuma na Kalobeyei. So yes, tulifika Turkana. And about having ECD and Department of Health. So this means that we need to work together, and we need a good working relationship at the county level because we need to work collaboratively. And thank you, Mheshimiwa Nairobi, for walking the journey with us, and to the 12 counties that we are in, and we are looking forward to expand. We will also look forward to ensuring that the childcare space is having an allocation so that we can follow up implementation and have the audit. So thank you so much, and we vote for fairer regulations and policies. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to the panel, because I can see everyone is now heading towards a lunchtime. I'll not take much time to try to summarize or wind down the discussion. I know that the discussion continues, but as expressed by the panelists, thank you very much for having us in this session. We hope that through this session, we'll be able to see more open budgets, more public participation, more access to information to enable citizens to participate effectively and ultimately ensure fiscal transparency and better service delivery at the county level. Thank you very much.
Makofi Zaidi, Makofi. Thank you so much, our able moderator, Ms. Sheila Masinde, the Executive Director, Transparency International, Madam CPA Susan Tana, Associate Director, Policy and Partnerships, Kidogo Ali Years, and thank you also for the partnership for this summit. Asante sana. Ms. Caroline Gaita, who was our presenter earlier today in this session, the Executive Director, Mzalendo Trust, and CSO's Open Government Partnership. Asante sana, also for the partnership, because of making this summit very wonderful for all of us. Commissioner Charles Dulo, thank you so much. He's the Chairperson of Commission on Administrative Justice. And last but not least, Ms. Alice Guglev, CEO, Global Development Incubator, Africa Nachafas. Asanteni sana. Please, you may proceed to your seats. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's proceed for lunch. But very briefly, I would like members who come from wards or counties where World Vision is very visible in terms of running programs and what have you, please let's converge in room 23, second floor. Only for members, not everybody. Members where World Vision Kenya is very visible at the ground level, doing so many things, be it education, be it food, be it agriculture, and what have you. Let's meet at around 2:30, room 23, second floor. Let's break for lunch. It is now 1:25. The next session is supposed to start at 2:30. So I hope it's okay that we meet here at exactly 2:30 so that we can proceed. Remember, we'll have a presentation by COB, the Controller of Budget, FCPA, Margaret Nyakango. She'll be here. Sawa sawa. So karibuni.